Leo of Resident Raw. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Just give me 1 minute. We should start in like 2 or 3 minutes. I just got to take a little photo, post it on the Instagram, do a little advertisement, and we'll be ready to go in like 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, I mean, we are live right now on my end.
Yeah, I'm live on my end too, but just got to get
Okay.
everybody in here.
Fair enough. You, my dear viewer, let me know when you're in the chat here. Let me know where you're watching from, and let me know what time it is for you.
It does take a
Little
little
sensitive.
moment for people to start dripping in when you do a little live stream, so it's always best to wait a little bit.
Well, I'm under the impression, or I'm under the belief that we should just get right into it. I mean, you don't want to disappoint the viewers that have just joined, right?
Well, they can wait. But anyways, I mean, I'm ready to go. I just posted
Okay.
my thing on my Instagram story. Let me pull up the chat real quick.
All right.
But listen, first thing, I saw you were at Meatstock last weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you see the
Absolutely.
primal? Did you see the primal diet booth?
I did not. I think I saw a raw meat booth. If that is what you're referring to, then yes, I did see that.
Did
But I'm not. I didn't see it by name.
Did you see an older gentleman with long hair tied back, slightly grayish beard?
Maybe I'd have to see his face. um, I'd have to see his face again to know if I recognized him or saw him at all.
Well, if you did, that would be Phoenix B of Primal Planets. And Phoenix is a very interesting individual because he is very much my primal diet elder. He's been following the primal diet by Augenis Vonderplanets for 25 years, and he knew the man personally. So I was very interested
Hmm.
to see if you interacted with him because, listen, I didn't watch your video, but I saw you posted a video. Raw Primal is a religion and whatnot. And I can understand why you feel that way with the younger people that follow this diet because young people do tend to join cults. Just how it is. Young people will develop very cult like mentalities. But if you interact with some of these older individuals, you'll see it is very much not a cult. And these are individuals with a lot of wisdom. And that kind of brings me to something I wanted to mention that the primal diet has just been around with significantly more people than the carnivore diet generally has because listen, I've heard there's multiple cases of like certain farmers that have been carnivore for like 60 years, something like that. But these are like 2, 3 people. The primal diet has been something that's been around for multiple decades at this point, and we have quite a few people who have been on it for over 20 years. And to me, that's pretty telling. But anyways, I'm getting a little off topic. What's going on?
Oh, nothing much. I mean, you said a few things there. I think maybe we should get started there. You say that you didn't watch my video. However, you said that you saw the title of it, Raw Primal is a Religion. Now, of course, Raw Primal and the Primal Diet is not the exact same thing, and I'm aware of that, but that wasn't the intended point. And I'm sure that there are differences in the demographics of whether it's older people that are adopting a primal diet approach or whether it's younger people. You say though that broadly speaking, it's not necessarily a religion. I want to ask you a question directly. Did you or did you not in the past reject the system of science?
Oh, undeniably, yeah.
Okay, so the intention here is to have a productive conversation that is based on and it is predicated upon a premise that is unified and is constant between the both of us, or else we can't have a coherent conversation. So tell us why you believe that science is not the right premise to be having the conversation based on. What is science to you?
Well, here's the thing it's kind of dependent because science, the true definition of it, science is actually a great thing. All science is analyzing the truth, trying to find the truth through various testings, whether it's studies or some kind of mechanistic research or analyzing things under the microscope. In that sense, the
Okay.
definition is wonderful. But when we look at actual modern science, the kind of things that's posted on PubMD, studies with pharmaceutical researchers and all that, really, you could sum that up as a religion. And the reason why I say this is, think about a religion like Islam, for example. You read the text and you're just supposed to believe it. They don't give you any downright proof because here's the thing. For me, proof is trying something out and seeing the results yourself, seeing that it actually works yourself. I'll give you a good example. If there's a study that says that shooting somebody in the head is going to kill them, you're going to have to try that out yourself and see that. Now, we have plenty of videos on Live Leak and Best Score where we can see people's heads being blown out if you shoot them in the head. So we know that's true. But with science, there's certain things that you just have to believe. And listen, I'm not one of those people that completely deny everything that, there's certain people I've met that don't even believe mitochondria is a real thing, don't even believe cells are a real thing. But, we think of some of these things like, the enzymes that are used in the mechanisms of the Randall cycle, for example. You haven't seen that yourself. You'd have to actually go to a laboratory and do this yourself. And this is why I say, in a sense, it's a religion, because they tell you what to believe. And now, of course,
Well, hold on a minute. Have you seen mitochondria yourself?
I have not.
Okay, but you believe mitochondria exists, right?
Yeah,
Why?
because Agena says so. And I know that makes it sound like it's a
Hold on a
religion.
minute. Wait. Hold on. Yeah. Hold on a minute. Now you're saying that basically you can't trust anything out of a Bible, out of the Quran. You mentioned Islam, for example, based on just what it says verbatim, because that wouldn't be logical. And now you're saying that just because Agnes von der Planet said something, that you're able to trust it because that's what he says. Where did he get that information from?
Well, he did laboratory research himself. And as I said, I've interacted with
Okay.
multiple people that have known him. And everything he says is legit. Everything he says works. And, what I'm more so referring to specifically are these public papers, not necessarily these, for example, the heart. I've never seen a heart before, but I know the heart is in your chest. But I'm more so referring to different things like specific mechanisms and, a great example. I don't want to talk about it on YouTube, but microbiology. Before we spoke, I briefly mentioned that as you know, anyone that watches my channel, they know that I don't believe in what the mainstream science says about microbiology, that microorganisms cause severe diseases and whatnot. And it's great to mention this because there's a little something going on, something that rhymes with haunted iris. And I made a little Instagram video about that. If you guys haven't seen that, you should check that out. But my point is, I don't completely reject everything because there are people that, like I said, they don't believe in any of this stuff. But either way, just the mainstream consensus isn't something I really look for when it comes to answers. I prefer to test things myself. An example is, if Agena says, or anyone in general says, raw milk is superior to pasteurized milk, you have to actually try it yourself. You can't just read a study because, listen, there are studies on raw milk that says, oh, if you don't heat milk, it preserves the vitamin A, it preserves this and that, it preserves the enzymes. You have to actually try
Mm-hmm.
it on yourself. And I think that's a completely reasonable stance to have.
Okay, so let's say that someone is deciding to. Are you still with me? It looks like the connection was. Okay, there you go. I see you now. Let's say that someone is trying to lose fat on their body, and we'll
Hmm.
get into this conversation later because you suggested that that may not be the best course of action for that individual, but we'll save that for in a little bit. Let's say that someone is trying to do that, and venturing to do that, and they basically starve themselves for 5 days and they lose 10 pounds of fat. That worked for them. So is that
Hmm.
something that they should be doing?
Well, it depends on the context. If you're extremely obese, I'm talking like, a 5'6" person, you're over 300 pounds, then that's probably a good thing to be doing because it is true. Excessive weight. Again, you don't need science to tell you this. You can, logically thinking, you know that having this much weight on your body is going to put immense strain on your organs, immense strain on your body. And not to mention, people's fats today are composed of highly easily oxidized omega-6 fatty acids. So it's not a healthy thing to have on your
Hmm.
body. So yes, it depends on the context though. But if you're extremely obese, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. How do you determine what that threshold is? Where's the cutoff as to when it's appropriate to have that much fat on you and when it's inappropriate? The amount of fat that you have on you is inappropriate or appropriate. What do you use to infer that and determine that?
Generally, with the BMI index, if you're about over 40 pounds overweight, according to the BMI index, that's when it starts to get problematic. But again, the BMI index doesn't count for muscle and fat and all that.
Right.
But
Right.
it's a
So what
D
would be your cutoff then? Like what would be the definitive example? What
about
would be your blueprint, so to speak?
about 40 pounds overweight, according to the BMI index, which for me, overweight, I'm 6'2". Overweight starts at 194 pounds. So, too overweight would be 232 pounds and above, or 234 pounds and above for me. That would be too overweight. The ideal range would be somewhere around the 20-pound overweight mark, which for me would be 214 pounds. I am currently 198 pounds, so I'm not too far off from that ideal range. And as you can see, I look rather thin, and I'm almost 200 pounds.
Okay. Are you still with it? It looks like there's a connection issue that's going on. It keeps disconnecting and then reconnecting. See if he comes back.
Am I having a your chat, the people in my live stream, am I having any connective issues?
It looks like it on my end. I don't think I'm having any connection issues. I disconnected my VPN to prevent that from happening, so not sure. Yeah, a little bit of there's some connection issues here going on, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's something on your end.
Something on my end. Is
Yeah,
that what you're
my
saying?
chat. Yeah, my chat is fine. My chat's saying it's fine.
I'm not sure why this would be. This is the first time I've had this happen whenever I've had anyone on the on the live, which
Maybe
has
I
really only been
maybe I
two
could
other
leave and
people,
come
but
back.
um yeah, here, hold on a minute. You can do that now.
Sure. Give me 1 second. All right, I guess we're having some technical difficulties. Um, Let me turn this off real quick. All right, bear with me here, y'all. This vegetable juice I'm drinking, by the way, is hella bussin'. I'm thinking about doing a little vegetable juice recipe video soon. All right, let me hope I don't leak the Zoom so somebody doesn't join. Join from browser. Resident Raw. All right, we are back. Delete the URL. All right, how am I sounding now?
All right, I'm getting some feedback here, and they're saying that my connection seems fine as well. I think it might be just the call itself. It's one of us, but I don't know who it is, and I don't think we're gonna be able to figure it out. My stream is going fine, and your stream on your end, they seem to be saying that it's going fine as well. So, um, anyway, where were we? We were talking about you believe that the BMI, at least the 40 pounds overweight, is sort of the determinant for whether you are too fat, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, Now you just said that you rejected the idea of science. Now I want to touch on this because what you said whenever I asked you the question, what does science mean to you? You and I actually agree on what people call science today not actually being science.
That's
It
correct.
really isn't science at all. It is theology. In fact, I was at Meatstock and I gave this talk in front of over 100 people, and I said, human nutrition science, especially, is theology. And it's not to knock theology broadly speaking, but what it is to do is to say, because true enlightenment really is realizing that everything is theology in some sense. But what
Mm-hmm.
I've said is we need to be able to distinguish between what science actually is by its definitive definition, its original traditional definition, and what theology is, because you can't just blur those lines. So you and I actually agree on that. We just have different ways of saying it, because science itself is great. We agree on that. It's just the study of the universe, the underlying logic of the universe, and in an attempt to pursue truth through humble curiosity. That's really what that is.
Mm-hmm. That is the
The
official.
problem is that
Am I lagging?
yeah, unfortunately, um, I don't know why this is happening, but you can keep talking. You can keep talking, and we'll go from there. We'll see
I
if
can
I
hear you
can
just fine, by the
finish your
way.
sentence. Oh, okay, okay.
But I was gonna say that is the official definition, but in reality, that's just not what ends up happening. And my problem necessarily isn't with science. It's more so with corrupt researchers that are obviously getting paid to spread misinformation and just release
Mhm.
things that aren't true. Like the example that is my favorite is my microbiology. Everything we know about microbiology is a complete lie, completely made up. And if you listen to mainstream science, you should be afraid of raw foods. You should be afraid of microorganisms. But in reality, that just doesn't end up being the case. The best example is if you consume rotten raw foods, you won't get any kind of bacteria, V word, parasite, poisoning of any kind. You won't get any kind of sickness. You know, myself, plenty of people I've known have eaten roadkill, rotten roadkill. I've eaten rotten chicken and rotten pork with maggots all over it. No problem. And, you know, when you think about the thing that happened in 2020, the people that were really getting sick were the people that had a harmful medical intervention done. So, again, that's why I don't buy into the mainstream science. All I care about is what works, what's true.
Okay, so would you agree that mainstream medicine acknowledges that your terrain does have influence on whether you are going to contract an illness or a disease?
To a certain degree, but it's not significantly stated so. Because, you know, they'll say certain things like, you know, eating too much sugar increases your risk of diabetes. But they tend to say things like risk and associations instead of actually saying, hey, if you have too much sugar in your bloodstream, you have diabetes. So they do mention the terrain, but they'll say certain things like there's certain ailments that are genetic and you can't cure them. And the only reason you have them is because of genes, and certain genes do certain things. When really everything is terrain related, because, you know, you think about the first two humans that existed. They certainly had no ailments of any kind. But eventually, they started developing it. And it's all terrain because, listen, you can pass down harmful genes, if you will, to other people. For example, oh, it's laggy. Damn, my
Oh,
internet.
now I'm not having the lag on my end now.
I'm just going to continue. But anyways, listen, for example, if you have diabetes and you have a child, your child will have whatever thing caused the diabetes for you, whether it was a damaged pancreas or you just have way too much glucose and sugar in your body. You will pass that off to your children. So that's what I believe when they say, you know, something is genetics. But they do recognize that there is some terrain, but they just don't put enough emphasis on it.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. However, the reason that I asked you the question is because you said that everything that microbiology has to teach is completely wrong because just because someone eats rotten, because whenever someone eats rotten roadkill, they don't necessarily come down with an illness. However, even microbiology will tell you that that is very well plausible and very well possible because as much as germs have influence over disease, and you can disagree with this and give your insight here if you'd like, terrain also does. And so it's not a one size fits all. It's not a one thing causes Y invariably, right? Would you agree with that?
That is what they say, but again, they put too much emphasis on microbiology causing specifically disease. And one thing they say that's
No, and I
just
agree with that.
right, right.
I agree with that completely. I do.
And one thing
But you wouldn't
that's
say that it has no influence over disease, right?
microorganisms.
Yeah. Would you agree that they have influence over the development over disease, even if they don't definitively cause those diseases?
Well, it depends what you mean by disease and sickness. So, disease is something like diabetes, cystic fibrosis, something along those lines. While sickness, like, you know, your common cold, those are influenced by microorganisms. But severe diseases, like some of them that are completely made up, a good example would be like amoeba in the brain, or what's the folded Prion's disease. Prion's disease is another good example. They say all these things are caused by microorganisms. The Prion's disease is specifically like the misfolded protein or whatever. But none of
Yeah,
these.
prions themselves are proteins.
Right, right.
Yeah, they affect your central nervous. Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah.
these things just don't happen in reality. Now, of course, you know, you can look at whatever paper and it'll say this happened, like, oh, in 1982 in South Africa, these people were eating raw cow's brain and got this illness. But either way,
Right.
microorganisms, they are the facilitators of detox, which means there could be certain bacteria, certain parasites that cause a sickness, which all the sickness is a detoxification. When you think about when you're sick, what are you doing? You're sneezing, you're coughing, you might be throwing up, you might shit yourself, and this is the body expelling things. What mainstream science will say is that you're expelling some kind of harmful bacteria. But what you're doing is expelling toxins. You're expelling some kind of poison that was introduced to you as from medical, I don't want to say the word, but, medical things and, food, just things like that.
Okay, so allow me to ask you this. What is your understanding of evolutionary biology and natural selection pressures?
Specifically, like if I believe in evolution or not.
Well, not whether you believe it, although that is probably an important question as well, but what is your understanding of the theory, even if you believe it to be a theory?
The theory of evolution as a whole.
Yeah, what's your understanding of the logic by which it works and functions in the universe?
What do you mean specifically? Are you asking me like how evolution works?
Well, allow me to rephrase here. The reason I'm asking, because it's not a leading question or anything like that. The reason I'm asking is because you are suggesting, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but you're suggesting that whenever you contract an illness, that you made the distinction between disease and sickness, right? Let's just say sickness. Let's roll with that for the sake of the argument here and for the sake of brevity. You're saying that whenever you contract one of these things, what you're doing is it's a detoxification process. And by the way, I actually am not necessarily averse to using that language because absolutely sure. Um, but you're saying that it's detoxification not from the thing that is infiltrated, not from a bacterium, not from a parasite, for example. It is from toxins that you've acquired through certain medical interventions that you're not very fond of, for example. Many people are not very fond of. And so what I'm asking you is, do you understand how evolutionary biology works? Because if you did, there would be sort of not necessarily a hole, but something to really contend with your argument, because a bacterium, a parasite, these are living things. And in order to live, they need to feed off of the body in the host. And so as a result of that, they are going to be taking utilities, so to speak. They're going to be taking resources from the overall organism. And so why wouldn't it be the case that the body would be trying to expel those things, especially when we know that they will start excreting those things in things like mucus, in things like fecal matter? We know this to be the case. So why are you saying that germs have no influence over disease? Why are you insisting upon the idea that germs themselves, quote unquote germs, are not the things that the body is interested, quote unquote, to sort of personify it a bit, in expelling from the body? Why are
Well,
you saying that?
well, that is a great question. And there is a symbiotic relationship between the bacteria and the parasites. So here's the thing. I don't like using the word parasite because parasite obviously has an association of like, a blood leech, something that takes from you, takes healthy tissues from you. And while when you do,
Right?
when you eat, you do feed the bacteria, parasites, V words. Well, the V words not necessarily, but the bacteria, parasites, fungi as well that are in your ecosystem, and they provide benefits that far outweigh the nutrition that's given to them. Because here's the thing, you have more bacteria cells in your body than you do actual animal cells. And specifically, bacteria is somewhat of a janitor. It helps clean out toxicity. And even in a natural setting, you are still exposed to toxins because mercury, for example, is natural. There's mercury, if there's a like Pompeii, if there's some kind of volcanic eruption, there could be mercury in the air after that. So there are toxins you are introduced to even in a natural setting. So you always need these microorganisms to actually detoxify. So in a sense, that's kind of why the medical industry will call bacteria somewhat of a parasite, where the bacteria is trying to feed on your own healthy tissue. One thing you can see that just makes no sense is modern day microbiology will try to tell you that bacteria is attempting to kill you, to eat you, when we have this symbiotic relationship with them. You have plenty of bacteria. This is common knowledge. You have bacteria that live inside you and have a
Hold on a minute.
symbiotic relationship. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, correct. But not all bacteria are the same, correct?
That's correct.
Right. And so can you extrapolate how certain bacteria in our bodies function to all bacteria in the universe?
Well, obviously there's differences in bacteria. The nuances on them just aren't important because there is no single natural bacteria that will cause any kind of illness, specifically disease. Now, sickness, I do have to be careful with my wording, but Like I
Yeah,
said,
well, yeah, because you're saying that that they don't cause it, but what would be more appropriate would be to say that there's no direct evidence that they directly cause it invariably, which is what I said earlier. Because to say that you would have to provide you provided a positive claim. You have to provide evidence that they definitively do not cause disease, and they at least don't have any influence over disease. And all the data available, some that's faulty and that I wouldn't trust, especially you want to talk about the V word studies. Those studies are extremely limited. They're extremely problematic in the methods that they use because a lot of times they didn't have any controls in the first place. So it's all nonsense. The science itself, the science behind the V words, right? These medical interventions.
yep.
But of the available science on germ theory, etc., the ones that actually have any integrity, there is a direct one-to-one relationship within populations that have sickness and those populations exhibiting the expulsion by their body of bacteria, um, the other V word, other things of that nature. And so I am obviously understanding that association equals causation. You understand that. I
Hmm.
mean, we both understand that. However, there's a clear mechanism at play as well that ought not to be casually ignored. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I mean, if you're looking into the intricacies of it, sure. I mean, if you want to know every little itty bitty detail of how bacteria specifically work and how they detoxify the body, sure. But for a certain individual who's just trying to be healthy, they don't need to understand these mechanisms. And you would agree with this, correct? If you want to do carnivore, do you need to understand the mechanisms behind it?
No, I don't necessarily think so. But however, just because someone doesn't understand the mechanisms, as you're saying, right, we both agree that it doesn't mean that it won't work. Right. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but allow me to ask you a question. You said earlier that the best thing to do to infer whether something is appropriate or not effectively is to see whether it works or not. But going back to my example of someone that loses fat on maybe 100 pounds of fat by starving themselves for days on end, I'm talking at that point months on end. Is that appropriate just because it works?
Well, like I said, it does depend on the context, but give me 1 minute to raise stream volume a little bit. Testing, 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 testing. Might be a little better.
That's
But,
fine.
but again, it completely depends on the context. Um, Here's the thing, fasting for that long is not a great idea. It's always a good idea to give your body some kind of nutrition. Um, you're obviously going to be put in a food deficit. I don't like saying caloric deficit, more like a food deficit, because obviously the less food you eat, the more weight you will lose. It's just common sense. But I mean, that's the
Well, I
answer to my
mean,
question.
once you get to the extremes of the ranges, because you can eat less food and not actually budge, and sometimes you can gain fat because of hormonal signaling.
Mm-hmm.
But yes. I mean, I get your point. Yes. Obviously what you're saying is that you can't get fat and put on weight if you don't put something into the system.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we agree with that. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So if that's the case, then I mean, what's stopping someone from asking you? Well, I mean, it worked for me though. I lost a ton of weight, so it worked for me. So I should keep doing it. Now you just said that well they should be having some nutrition, but now okay, what if they have nutrition, but it's all in the form of protein shakes? Is that appropriate?
I mean, again, it all depends on the context. If you don't care about your health and you just want to do that, sure, why not? But if you want to be
Okay, so
optimal,
so you don't think that you think that's unhealthy then?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, now why do you think it's unhealthy? What are you basing that claim on? Because you said you reject science, so what are you basing it on?
Well, protein powder specifically, it's literally a powder. The best example, and this is what I said when I was talking to Bart K. If you look specifically, I use the example of honey, but I don't have any meat with me right now. But if you look at raw meat and you look at cooked meat, they look completely different. If you look at raw meat and you look at actually milk specifically, or more so raw whey, because protein powder, what it is, it's freeze dried whey. You look at freeze dried whey versus whole whey, it's two completely different things. They're not going to behave in your body whatsoever. So they're not going to behave in your body similarly whatsoever. And then the next thing is lots of protein powders are contaminated with heavy metals. There could be sugar, synthetic sugars, coloring, food dyes. And now you might be asking, well, how do you know those things are bad for you? Well, again, while I reject modern science, there's things we know that are obviously harmful to you. There's 6 gorillion studies that will tell you that food dyes are linked with ADHD and food dyes this and that. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that these highly refined synthetic compounds aren't good for you. But that's why it wouldn't be a good idea to lose a bunch of weight with protein powder.
Well, so hold on. You say it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that, but shouldn't you provide some logic as to why those things are bad for you? I mean, you got to
In
have some reason why. I mean, you can't just say yes or no because one thing's in a powder form or something like that. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. What is the reason why it's bad? What makes something bad because it's in powdered form? What makes something bad because it's a food dye? What is it?
Well, for example, when you powder something, when you freeze dry it, it loses its enzymatic content, so it becomes very difficult to digest. There's also obviously nutrient losses,
So,
and
okay, so if you can't digest something, then that's indicative of you not being appropriate to consume. Is that what you're saying? If you can't properly digest something?
I'd say so. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's why we don't eat whole
Okay.
vegetables. You
So
can't really digest them well.
what about the fruit that you consume?
I actually, in my own diet, low network bandwidth.
Okay.
It's over.
Well, at least you understand that.
We should be good to go.
Oh, I still have you. I still have you. I
Yeah,
still have you.
ask the question again.
I said, what about the fruit that you consume? And then you said at the same time that that's why you don't consume full vegetables. So at least you understand a bit of that, right?
Well, the fiber in fruit is completely different to the fiber that's in vegetables. In fruit, it's
Completely?
yeah. In fruit, it is generally insoluble fiber. There are small amounts of insoluble fiber,
No, that it's oh yeah, okay. No. It's mainly soluble fiber in fruit. I thought you said
hmm
it was mainly insoluble. Yes. Okay, you're right. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
soluble fiber, as the name suggests, is digestible. Now, is it as digestible as
Well,
animal? Is it as
it it
digestible as
do-
animal foods? It's not.
it absorbs into your stomach. It dissolves, which is why it's soluble.
hmm
But it's you still can't digest it. You can ferment it, which is I suppose that you could make an argument as fermentation being a form of digestion, but
Right.
it's a little bit of a gray area.
Well, here's another thing. When you consume fruit, it is mainly water. When you consume a vegetable, I mean, most vegetables you have to cook them. When you cook them, you remove a lot of the water content. You're pretty much just eating large amounts of fiber. When you consume fruit, this small amount of fiber, specifically it being soluble as well, which reduces the harm of it, just makes it completely negligible on your health. But I will say this though, even though fruit is part of the primal diet, fruit is like the least should be like the least portion of your diet, like a very small amount. And something a good piece of advice I've picked up is you don't actually want to deal with fruit cravings by eating fruit because generally you're craving something else. For example, fruit cravings are usually you're either craving the alkaline minerals in them or you're craving the enzymatic content. And the little bit of the carbohydrate can be beneficial for some people, but there's generally better sources of carbohydrate on the side, mainly being milk. But we don't really consume those foods for the carbohydrate content. This is a very low carbohydrate diet, but I personally do not consume fruit. I have not consumed fruit in a very long time. It's been like well over 6 months. It's just because I have my enzymes in check. I have everything else in check. I don't necessarily need fruit, but it's a very useful tool when you're first starting off on this diet.
Okay, let's start pivoting over to carbohydrates here. I think that's probably a good idea. You just said that the primal diet is low in carbohydrates. How many grams of carbohydrates do you think you consume every single day?
Around 40 to 50.
Okay, is that counting the carbohydrates in your raw unheated honey?
No. No,
Why
that's
is that?
well because unheated honey is the carbohydrate content of it is in actuality is extremely low because it's not utilized by the body as actual carbohydrate. And now, here's
Okay,
the thing.
so hold
I
on a second. Hold on a second. No, I gotta stop you there. I've been very, very charitable with giving you some time here. I really have, and I'm glad this is a good conversation, but I have to stop you here. 1 tablespoon of raw unheated honey is about 21 grams in weight.
mhm.
How many of those grams are made up of carbohydrate?
It's about 18.
Correct. Now, that is not a low carbohydrate food. However, I'm going to represent your argument properly. You said that it's not because of the absolute carbohydrate content. You're saying that it's not utilized as carbohydrates in the body. Is that correct?
Yeah, about 90% of those sugars are not actually utilized as sugars.
Okay, according to what? And by what mechanism?
According to Ogenes's laboratory research. And one thing, listen, one thing you can try, and I wanted to bring this up earlier. At Meat Stock, I heard you tried raw milk for the first time. That's correct?
That is incorrect. That is correct.
And I'm not changing the topic. I'm not changing the subject. This is relevant to this. And you mentioned that raw milk is a
Good.
completely different food to pasteurized milk, correct?
Correct. Well, it tastes like one. Yeah. And also, yes, there are differences for sure.
That is the same case when it comes to raw honey and unheated honey. All research that is done on honey is done with raw honey. So how could you say that what I'm saying is untrue if there's no research, there's no kind of work done on truly unheated honey? Now,
So, what research are you referring to of agenesis?
well, he worked in a laboratory and he would
Hmm.
analyze he would analyze things under the microscope, and that's the conclusion he came to. And another thing is when people
He analyzed the honey under the microscope. That's what you're saying. That's the difference.
you'd have to ask the man himself, but he's dead. So there's that. But what I want to mention is when people consume unheated honey, specifically
Well,
people,
hold on. I'm sorry.
mhm,
You're saying that we have to ask him, but he has his research, correct? You said that he has his research.
his research is not public.
It's not public.
That's correct.
So have you read the research?
Well, it's not public, so I haven't.
Did he detail it in his book?
He did speak about it in his book a lot.
What were his specific claims about honey? I mean, first of all, before you even answer that question, don't you see a problem here, though? Don't you see a very glaring error here? You're saying that science nowadays is all wrong, which, by the way, that's that's the very same sentiment that I have. It's all wrong. It's theology, etc. At least the human nutrition science and all that. But now you're saying that, and you also claimed in the beginning that religion, it's religion, it's theology. And every single time that I press you on where you're getting your information from, you're referring to a man who does not have any public research that isn't detailing anything in his book. Not really. I mean, he's detailing his conclusions, but wouldn't you agree that there's plenty of scientists today that have papers that have conclusions that are completely erroneous, that are completely not they're complete non sequiturs from what they actually observed? Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah,
That's one of your main
absolutely.
problems, right?
No, absolutely.
And so,
But
what do we have? What evidence do we have that agenus is correct about honey's metabolism?
when you actually
And
test it on yourself, it does not react in the same way as raw honey whatsoever. And I have
well, how
multiple
do you,
testimonies of this. There's people with diabetic problems, they consume unheated honey and they don't have a problem with it. In fact, they have the opposite of a problem. The unheated honey is extremely useful in treating diabetics for them because
well, how controlled was that observation? I mean, as compared to what? Heated honey? Oh, is that all you changed, or was it a full dietary change?
well, it's just, some people will consume raw honey. They'll have glycemic problems. They'll have, significant elevated levels of blood sugar, and then they consume unheated honey and they don't have a problem with it.
Okay, but whenever you change their diet, you're changing their full diet, correct?
Generally, yeah, that's
Whenever
correct. That's correct.
okay, so wouldn't you agree that that's not controlled then? You don't know.
You could say that.
Do you test their CGM, or do you use a CGM or anything? Do you recommend that they use one to actually test their glycemic load or blood sugar level after they consume raw unheated honey versus heated honey?
No, but I have experimented with a blood glucose monitor, unheated honey versus raw honey. The unheated honey does still have an elevation in blood sugars, but compared to raw honey, it is about 20-30% less. I'm hoping to do a video on this very soon where I test it out myself. But
20 to 30% less. What do those convert to into absolute terms? I mean, what was the original level whenever you consumed unheated honey in milligrams per deciliter, and what was it when you consumed well, heated versus unheated? Basically, is what I'm asking for.
so I did this a very long time ago. I did this when I was first starting out, but the raw honey, I believe it was about 37 and the unheated honey was somewhere around 30.
Say that again.
The heated honey, it was around 37, and then the unheated honey was around 30, 29, 30, something like that.
Okay, so we're talking about a difference in 7 milligrams per deciliter. Is that really that significant?
It doesn't seem like that in the grand scheme of things, but Agenus has his own explanations for that I'm sure you will definitely not agree with.
What's that?
Well, his explanation is that when you consume unheated honey, it starts to pull the residues of cooked carbohydrates out of the body into the bloodstream, and that's what creates this elevated rise in blood sugars. Because one thing I will say, and this is undeniably true, when you consume cooked carbohydrates, they do leave residues in the body, advanced glycation end products.
Right, but you don't absorb hardly any of those whenever you consume them. You know that, right?
Yeah,
And also, those wouldn't show up on a blood sugar meter because it's not blood sugar. That's an advanced glycation end product.
I
It's not
under
glucose.
I understand, but that's specifically the one that's known to science. Like I said, there's more than likely there's just a lot of things that are undiscovered. You know, a good example I use is in raw meat. Like over 50% of the compounds in there are undiscovered. You can't synthesize raw meat in a laboratory with all of the known compounds that make it up. So my point being is just these things aren't researched, and if we did actual good research on this, it would be proven because experimentation to me is just how you discover things. And as I mentioned before, unheated honey, people just don't have a problem with it as compared to raw honey, which is
Right, but
they're two
I
completely
think,
different things.
why are you saying that people don't have a problem with unheated honey instead of just saying that people don't have a problem, in your experience, with the primal diet? Because if you changed their diet to something completely different, and one of the things you changed was the difference in honey quality, how can you say that it's really it's the case that they're not having a problem with unheated honey? What if they got even better if you remove the unheated honey?
You know what? I just remembered something, and I can post it after this live stream. I have a testimony from an individual I've worked with. He has a wife who refuses to do the primal diet because she's afraid of raw foods. However, she's very diabetic, and he's been giving her unheated honey, and she's not having any kind of problems with her blood sugar, her glycemic index, nothing like that. Just consuming the unheated honey, and she hasn't changed anything in her diet other than consuming the unheated honey. And occasionally, she will include raw milk into her diet.
Okay, so what else is she eating? Is she only eating raw honey?
No, she'll, her
Right.
diet, he told me her diet, she'll eat like bakery cookies, she'll eat stews like, cooked meat in a stew,
Okay.
potatoes, bread.
Right. Well, why don't we go about it in a different way? What is diabetes? You already know what diabetes is, right?
Of course.
Right. It's chronically elevated blood glucose. Now, how do you achieve diabetes?
Mainly it is a damaged pancreas, and the pancreas can't excrete the insulin, which is one reason why unheated honey is very effective for
Well,
treating diabetics because there is a peptide in
no,
unheated
hold on a
honey.
minute. Hold on a minute. I can't. You're saying there's a damaged pancreas and it's not secreting sufficient insulin, but
Hmm.
most people with diabetes are secreting sufficient insulin. It's just not able to get glucose into cells.
Right. The insulin specifically just isn't working properly, and it's also not secreting because there are diabetics that do not have enough insulin, and that's typically
But yeah, that
what the
happens
problem is.
later once they've been diabetic for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before that, you're saying that insulin doesn't work very well.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference? Is there a difference in the molecules? Is there a difference in what is the difference?
Well, the pancreas just isn't working properly. The pancreas is what regulates all this, and as you know,
Well, no, no. The thing that regulates blood glucose levels primarily, yeah, you could say that the pancreas indirectly does so because it releases glucagon and insulin, other things as well,
mm-hmm.
but insulin and glucagon. But insulin primarily is going to be the hormone involved in bringing glucose levels down. So in people that have diabetes that aren't trending towards type 1 or type 1.5, where they're not secreting sufficient insulin that just keeps going lower and lower, in those people, why is insulin not bringing the glucose down? What's the difference?
Well, it depends on the kind of diabetes. Type 1 is mainly a damaged pancreas, as I said. Type 2 is more so excessive carbohydrates in the diet, and that's much more easily treated.
Okay, so excessive carbohydrate. So how would you treat that?
Well, specifically, if so, in the context of the primal diet, if you want to treat diabetes, depends on type 1, type 2, but type 2, you can generally fix it just by excluding carbohydrates from your diet. Type 1 is going to be
Okay.
much more vigorous. What you need to do is
Well, let's just
exclude.
focus on type 2. Let's just focus on type 2 because
Sure.
type 1 is not what most people have, right? It's usually type 2 in today's society.
Well, if you want to fix type 2, you would generally have to do the same thing people with type 1 does, but not as strict of a protocol. So, first of all, you exclude any kind of cooked carbohydrate from your diet. Your fruit intake should be minimal to none. Your milk source should be mainly goat's milk. You should be either consuming raw pancreas or supplementing with freeze dried animal pancreas. And then, depending,
Why is that?
well, because when you consume the animal of an organ, it will help your own organ, the respective organ. I'm sure you've heard of the doctrine of signatures before.
I've not heard of that.
The
Tell me
doc
more about the evidence that suggests that to be the case necessarily.
Well, when you think about this, in traditional health wisdom, it says like if you eat an animal's liver, it's good for your own liver. If you look at the compounds in liver, there are compounds in there that are good for you. A better example is brain. Animal brains are rich in DHA, EPA. All these are good for your own brain. So
Right.
consuming the respective organ in an animal is beneficial to your own organ. And here's another excellent example: thyroid. If you consume animal thyroid, it's good for your own thyroid. Do you know that the treatment for hypothyroidism before levothyroxine was synthesized is to consume desiccated pig thyroid?
I have not heard of that.
You've never heard of that before?
I've never heard of that.
Well, it's a real thing. So consuming the
Oh,
respective
I'm not denying that. I'm not
right.
denying that. And by the way, I don't think this is really the most egregious claim. There are going to be nutrients that are specifically higher in concentration in certain organs that therefore can be utilized for your organs if the same organs in your body if you have problems with it. Um, so but the reason that I'm getting to this is because it really what we're talking about is how to fix type 2 diabetes.
Hmm.
And you're saying to eat all these foods and all this stuff, but notice the three things that you said are very low in carbohydrates, are they not?
That's correct.
You didn't list raw honey in that. So would
Well,
you condone the consumption of raw honey in someone that has diabetes?
unheated honey is more so for people with type 1 diabetes because, like I said, type 2 diabetes is much easier to fix. Type 1 diabetes, they generally need to take insulin, they need to take pharmaceutical
Right,
insulin.
right.
And
So you would tell type 1 diabetic to consume carbohydrates in the form of raw honey then? That's what you're
unheated
saying?
to consume unheated honey, correct? The
Okay. And
recommendation
you're
for
making
the recommendation for type 1 diabetics is to consume up to 4 ounces, half a cup of unheated honey, and that acts as an insulin supplement. And like I said, I've seen several people that have been able to get off their
wait,
insulin and
an
consume
insulin
unheated
supplement.
honey instead. That's correct. They can act as insulin, the unheated honey.
How? Based on what?
Based on the fact that it works.
What is the mechanism?
That's all I care about. Well, specifically there are
No, you can't.
peptides.
That doesn't. That's not how that works. You can't just say because it works.
Well, one thing I will
You
say
can't
is
say.
there
Come
are
on, you
peptides
understand why
inside
we
of the
can't really
unheated
accept
honey.
that, right?
I understand. Listen, I understand. But again, it works, and that's really all I care about. But what I do want to mention is I don't remember the names off the top of my head, but there are two peptides that bees produce in their stomach that can be found in unheated honey, and these peptides act like insulin.
Are okay. So the peptides themselves function as insulin. That's what you're saying.
That's correct.
Okay. What are these? What are these peptides? You do. First of all, hold on. Do you know what a peptide is?
Yes, of course. It's a type
Okay.
of
What is it?
protein. It's an amino acid.
Right. Right. I mean, well, yeah, effectively, yeah, because they're shorter chains. Okay, so
Hmm.
you do get that. And so, of course, with peptides, you do absorb peptides. But is there any evidence that you can point to that suggests that those peptides are going to have a hormonal effect on the body? Because insulin is a hormone.
Hmm.
What is the exact mechanism by which those peptides are going to have an influence on glucose entering a cell? Because that's what you're saying. Because that's what insulin mainly does.
Hmm.
Insulin doesn't just do that, though. You're saying that this peptide can function as insulin, broadly speaking, I would think. So that would
Hmm.
be fatty acid synthesis, triglyceride synthesis, would be glycogenesis, would be all those processes. So, what is your evidence for that?
Well, on a mechanism level, it just hasn't been studied, so I can't give you that answer. But what I can say
Okay,
is
so
it
well,
works,
hold on.
and
Then
that's
why
all that
why did you
matters
say
for
that?
me.
Well, okay, so you're saying that it works in what way? You're saying that it works because people that do so are having lower blood sugar levels observed?
The people that have type 1 diabetes and consume unheated honey in those amounts I mentioned, about 4 ounces a day, they don't have their diabetic problems go away. It acts as an insulin supplement for them.
Well, how can you draw the how can you say, okay, well, it works for them. They see ameliorations in diabetes, which of course can happen without having to cut out all carbohydrates, just by dropping them you can. And then jumping immediately from that to therefore raw honey must be functioning as insulin because of those two peptides that bees create. You said that there's two peptides I know based on science. There's two peptides
Hmm.
that function as insulin, and then you said it hasn't been researched.
Right. Well, specifically, we know that they act like insulin inside of bees, but when a human consumes it, there is no research on that, other than the fact that it works. And that's really, we've hit a brick wall here. And I understand your point. I understand your skepticism. I
I don't think
understand.
so. I don't think so. Here, if you think that we've hit a brick wall, let's target this. Let's target this thing here. If it works, then that means it must be true. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens whenever I Well, I mean, you're bringing up actually a philosophical discussion now. What is truth in the first place, right? You're
Hmm?
talking about what even is truth? How do we determine what is true, right? Um, just because you think that just because something works, it therefore must be true. That's what you're saying.
I mean, listen, now we're getting a little
What if
philosophical.
something only works half the time? What if something only works half the time? I mean, for example, can a math equation, when you plug in a value for x, spit out the right answer 50% of the time,
A
and the
math
other
equation,
50%
no.
of the time spit out a wrong answer?
In a math equation,
Well,
no.
no. Well, yeah, okay. Well, my point is actually that yes, you can have something that you can plug into a value, and then it spits out the right answer about 75% of the time, and other times it spits out the wrong answer 25% of the time. If your logic is long or wrong, if your logic is wrong, and so what I'm saying is, would you consider that logic true if it only yields a positive result 90% of the time?
Well, there's nuances to this because the body is a very
Right.
complex thing, and if it doesn't work, 100% of the time, there could be other factors involved. Because what I will say is, and listen, I'm a believer in
Right.
the truth, so I'm willing to admit things. The one thing I will say is I have seen in two individuals the unheated honey, two individuals with type 1 diabetes, the unheated honey didn't work for them. Everyone else, around 7, 8 people, I've known it worked for them. Two people it didn't work.
Mhm.
There could be, for whatever reason, it didn't
Right.
work on them, but it
Right.
generally
Okay.
works.
Okay. I agree with what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. You have to see, well, on a broad level, is it working or is it not? A lot of times, most of the time, that's actually our best inference.
Mm-hmm.
Now, notice though what you said. This is the point that I'm getting at. You just said here. You said, well, there's nuance to this. Sometimes it doesn't work, but it doesn't mean that the reason why it didn't work was because of the thing not being conducive to flourishing. It's because there are other confounding variables, is basically what you're saying.
That's correct.
So what if there were a system? What if there were a system that accounted for all of that noise and confounding activity and spurious activity and lurking activity that therefore mitigated and eliminated a lot of the consideration that's needed for that noise? What if there were a system that were like that?
What
Wouldn't
about
that be
it?
great?
I mean, sure.
Right. Well, this gets us back to evolutionary biology. Now, I've been reading the chat, and one person in particular said that you don't even believe in that. Tell us your perspective on that.
In evolution,
Yes.
well, it's just a personal belief of mine. I believe in the biblical accounts of the world, where I believe humans were created somewhere between 8,000, 12,000 years ago. And the evidence for this I see is, and let me tell you this because I want you to hear me out and I want you to consider this. Humans have been around allegedly for about 300,000, 350,000 years, correct? In the Homo sapien form.
In the Homo sapien form, correct, yes.
Is it correct that we have very little accounts of humans doing anything? And by anything, I mean no civilizations, no writing, up until about 8,000 years ago, correct?
You mean doing anything like pertaining to civilization
Like,
specifically?
correct. Evidence of them doing anything other than hunting and dying.
Um,
Let me provide,
sure, yeah. I mean, civilization is a recent phenomenon for sure, yeah.
that's right. Now, why did we do nothing for like 300,000 years?
Well, who said that we did nothing? You just said that we hunted.
But there's no evidence of any kind of civilization. Why have we not built a civilization in like
So what?
300,000 years? But why did it happen as soon as we started consuming vegetables, as soon as we started incorporating other things to the diet? To me, listen, the point I'm getting to is it doesn't make sense that humans were doing nothing for 300,000 years. And then all of a sudden, 6, 8, 10,000 years ago, we started civilization. And then we ended up to this point where we are now 6, 8,000 years ago. It doesn't make sense to me.
Is you're are you will or okay, so are you resting this a bit? Are you convicting? Are you comfortable being convicting, very convicting in your position that there was no evidence of any society, any evidence of civilization before the agricultural revolution around 13,000 years ago?
Well, it depends what you look into because there's a lot of alternative sources that will say some crazy shit like, oh, 50,000 years ago, the pyramids were there. Listen, this is a personal belief of mine. This isn't a belief that I put onto other people. It's not a belief
Okay.
that I'm 100% sure on. The same way you told me you're not 100% sure on the microbiology stuff I believe in. I'm not 100% sure in this, but it's just a personal belief of mine. You're asking me right now a
Right,
personal
right, but
belief.
I understand. I understand. You have I just find it. Look, I'm not against, like I said in the beginning, I'm not against theology intrinsically. I don't think it's intrinsically wrong or bad. Again, true enlightenment is realizing that effectively everything is theology when you dig deep enough. Right?
Mm-hmm.
What is truth in the first place? That alone is a theological question. It's a philosophical question. However, don't you find it? What would you say to someone? Because I think I'm not the only one sitting here thinking this. There are going to be people listening to you right now that are thinking, well, in the beginning, he's telling us that the, nutrition science is theology, and there's no evidence to support theology. If you look at a religious text, you're just told to believe it based on what it says.
Mm-hmm.
And then you turn around and you say, well, based on, I believe in the biblical teachings. And by the way, I don't really think the biblical teaching, I'm not even saying this in a flippant way, but I don't think the biblical teachings say to drink a bunch of celery juice. You're saying that this is where you're getting most of your beliefs from. So you can understand why someone would be a little hesitant to accept what you're saying, right? And your logic?
Well, I never said that I specifically believe in the entire biblical teachings of like dietary laws and all that. I specifically mean from a historical context because again, this is just a personal
Okay.
belief of mine. To me it makes no sense that civilization started 6, 8, 10, 12,000 years ago, whatever it was. And for about 300,000 years ago, humans just didn't start any civilization. It just doesn't make sense because um, you believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that humans from that 300,000 year give or take period, humans were primarily eating meat, correct?
Correct.
And that is
Are you suggesting that that's not true?
no, I'm not. And you
Okay.
believe that this was the healthiest diet for humans, correct?
I avoid the use of the word healthy. I usually use the word indicated because it's based on evolutionary biology and the Darwinian principles of such a field
But
of
would you
study.
say that was a good thing for them?
Um, I would say it's an indicated thing for them.
Sure. So, why on this indicated diet did humans just, like I said, they didn't do anything other than hunt for like 300,000 years? Did it really take
Well, okay. Let me
300,000
ask
years
you.
for them to
Let,
develop these tools to make a civilization?
let me ask you a question. Why is it the case that whenever we were consuming such a diet, our brain size skyrocketed?
Well, I listen, the brain size thing is one that I just I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if I believe that.
Okay, so you are rejecting anthropological data that suggests that our brain size increased. You're rejecting, I'll show you this graph here. You're rejecting the all too familiar graphic showing the increase in endocranial volume in different members of our species here. If you make that out there.
I can see it.
Okay, have you seen that before?
I have.
Okay, you are rejecting that idea, and the reason for that is because I would presume you don't believe the Earth has been around that long, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, but again, it's personal belief.
Okay, so okay, that's fair enough. But what happens whenever we trace back these remains? What do you think those remains were of? And how
Well,
long ago do you think they existed?
Well, it depends. I think likely some remains are just completely fake. A good example are the dinosaurs. A lot of dinosaur
Do
bones are just straight up fake.
Okay, hold on a minute, hold on a minute. You know how much money goes into doing studies on those bones?
I imagine it's a
Do you know
lot
how
of
much money
money.
goes into that?
I imagine it's a lot.
And what do they get in return?
Well, they can open museums for one.
Okay, do you think that's mostly what's going on though? You
Not
think that mostly what they're
necessarily.
doing? Okay, because this is important. What is their incentive to lie about those things? It's one thing to say that someone's lying and that it's fake, right? But having something be fake and having something so orchestrated like that must require an incentive,
Well, I'll give you
or else no
one.
one lies for no reason.
Oh Lord. I'll give you one example. Dinosaur bones are big money. People sell them for large amounts of money. Hold on. Sorry, we're having a little technical difficulties. But anyway, sorry. Did you ask a question?
No, no, go on.
Sorry, family's going a little crazy. Um,
You're good.
repeat.
I'm asking you, what would be the incentive for people to lie about something like that and spend that much money? I don't think he's talking to me.
No, I
Maybe
saw.
broken
Yeah,
signals.
yeah. Okay, so the
Yeah, yeah,
incent
yeah.
one of the incentives is they sell these bones for large amounts of money to rich people. That's one incentive. It doesn't have to be this grand conspiracy where, oh, they're making billions of dollars. Like small things. They just sell, what is supposed to be like a T-Rex skeleton for like $1 million or whatever.
Okay. Why don't they do that more often then?
Um, well, I don't know if they do. I don't know if they do it often or not. I haven't looked into that.
Because I'm telling you right now, there'd be a lot of money that they're spending on these adventures to find bones and have these people, you know, have full careers where they seek out these bones and then find them and then study them and perform mass spectroscopy on these bones and form, and find carbon and isotope analyses I'm sure you've heard of before, perform all these studies that cost a lot of money to
Yeah.
have very little return on investment. The return on investment, there is a return on investment in the conventional narrative, which again, I'm not someone that is averse to rejecting conventional narratives. I'm a carnivore. I eat a carnivore diet. That's not a conventional narrative at all. It's quite antithetical to that. However, the incentive is very clear in the conventional narrative, which is that we are trying to learn more things about ourselves and about the world. It's very important. It's why government funds science in the first place. Now, of course, government being involved in that has its extremely bad limitations and trade-offs, which is that they get to manipulate what the results are. Okay, so we're not too far off here, but to reject anthropological data entirely, I mean that's quite the position, wouldn't you say?
Well, again, I'm not saying that I reject everything in like the dinosaur bones. I'm not saying 100% of dinosaur bones are fake. Again, listen, I'm no expert on this. This is just my
Well,
personal
wouldn't you
belief.
say that's even more? Wouldn't you say that's even more implausible though for them to lie about only some and not others?
Well, I mean, it depends. Not necessarily. Like, for example, the T-Rex recently, within like the last 10, 20 years, they've changed its appearance. Now they believe it's feathered. They used to say it was this bald, the generic T-Rex you see in like Jurassic Park. And now I'm not saying that like, oh, T-Rexes are fake because they made a new discovery where now they have feathers. But my point is we don't know as much about
Okay.
these topics as they want you to think they do. And that's why like I'm skeptical about it. Like, can you understand why I'm so skeptical about this when my whole life I've been told one narrative and then I test these narratives out and they don't seem to be true.
I haven't said I haven't said that I don't understand why you feel disaffected towards these narratives.
Mhm.
But wouldn't you also admit that just because some of the narratives, if not even the majority of the narratives, are wrong and arrived at through nefarious and surreptitious motives that are dubious in nature, wouldn't you say that just because the majority of them are, that doesn't mean that all of them are wrong, right?
I mean, sure. I mean, listen. I think we've strayed too far from the topic. I'd like to ask you some questions about diet.
Um, Go ahead.
Well, first thing, you're a carnivore, correct?
Yes, and so are you.
What does that? Well, listen, I know what you mean by that, but your diet specifically. What does carnivore mean to you in diet?
Carnivore is really not something that I use as the most ideal term to recommend other people approach per se. It's usually in a brief fashion that I use that term. But in that colloquial sense, it is the best approximation to our species appropriate species specific diet for our speciation, that being Homo sapiens sapien, given our modern context. That's what it is.
So again, I
Do you have a problem
know.
with that?
No, no, no. Well, I know you use the word species appropriate, and I know you don't like the word healthy, but just entertain this.
Hmm.
Is that what you consider to be the healthiest diet? If and by specifically and let me specify health. By healthy, I mean the diet that is least likely to cause any kind of disease or sickness and potentially even reverse certain health issues. That's what I consider
But
healthy.
as a as a necessary consequence of it being our species appropriate, species specific diet, yes.
Okay, so the carnivore
It, mu-
diet.
that's according to evolutionary biology. Yes.
Okay, so what is carnivore to you? For example, is dairy carnivore?
Dairy is technically carnivore because that's not that's a different definition to the definition that I am using right now.
So what do you?
Carnivore, again, this is why I said indicated and not healthy, and this is why I also say species appropriate instead of carnivore.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense now?
No, I understand. I understand. What I'm trying to get at is like I'm just trying to understand what you eat and why you eat it specifically. So how about this? Typical day of eating. Tell me.
Typical day of eating.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you what I've been eating for the last 3 weeks or so.
Sure.
I've been eating beef brisket. Ideally, it wouldn't be cooked to shit, but we don't have a grill right now, and so unfortunately, I did put it in an electric pressure cooker. But that's lasted me for 3 weeks, and that's basically what I've been eating with salt
That's
and
it.
water. Very little in between. Some 85-15 grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef.
Why 85-15? Why not 80-20?
Because 85-15 is the only form of grass-fed, grass-finished beef I can buy right now.
Okay. I mean, I'll tell you what. I commend you for actually following it because Bart K does not follow his own diet. Do you? Here's the
Well,
thing.
do you know that?
Yeah.
He admits that he cheats once in a while, and he has also admitted that he doesn't adhere to it as much as he would like to, for sure, and as much as he thinks he should. But does that mean that the majority of his diet is not carnivorous or species appropriate in nature? Do you know that for sure?
Well, here's the thing, and I would like to touch up on that because I feel like the word carnivore has lost its meaning in a sense because when the carnivore diet first became popular around that 2019, early 2020 stage,
Mm-hmm.
correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you weren't around back then for the health space, but correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you know more
Correct.
about this. In 2019, 2020, the carnivore diet, it was meat, salt, and water, and nothing else.
Red meat, salt, and water was the idea. Yes, correct.
But recently, more so like around kind of Paul Saladino did this in a sense. Around that 2021 mark or so, carnivore became what people generally refer to as, I believe it's about 70 to 80% plus of your daily, it's either caloric or food intake is only meat. So because of this, people included cheese and dairy, correct?
I don't remember that. I don't recall that.
Well, either way, people will consider cheese and dairy, any kind of dairy whatsoever, to be part of the carnivore diet. Also, eggs. Do you consider eggs and dairy to be part of the carnivore diet?
By the definition of carnivore meaning derived from an animal product, yes.
So
But the
it's
thing is that there's not multiple, there are multiple different variations of a carnivore diet, and certain foods can approximate a species appropriate food better than others, which means that
hmm
some people may tolerate it and may decide to include it in their diets, and it may not be the best for the human race. I mean, that makes sense, right?
yeah. Would you consider dairy to be indicated?
Sorry, can you say that again? You cut out.
Would you consider dairy to be indicated?
I have pretty contentious views on dairy. I think that if you could get away from dairy, I'd actually recommend doing so. But I would actually more so emphasize dairy as being used as a tool on a carnivore diet, depending on what your specific goals are. It is not the most indicated. It's definitely, at the very least, I will be, in order to make a more convicting statement that sounds less ambiguous, it is not as species appropriate, not nearly as much as ruminant meat.
Why does it matter if it's species appropriate though?
Well, that's what gets back to our question earlier. What is your understanding of evolutionary biology?
Well, that's irrelevant
Why is that irrelevant? How is that irrelevant?
because I'm asking for your opinion on this. What I believe is irrelevant.
You just asked me why it's not indicated, and I'm asking you if you're going to be able to understand my reasoning,
Well,
because
give
in
your
order to
reason.
understand the reasoning,
Just
you
give
have to
your
understand
reasoning, and
evolutionary biology.
give your reasoning, please, and I'll tell you if I understand it.
Okay, let's start with this. The blueprint, the blueprint for how to infer what we ought to eat and what we ought not to eat. In 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 the world broadly, this is an objective phenomenon, actually. It's what sets me apart from other people that are subjectively putting these conclusions together. Is based on evolutionary biology. Let me okay, so you're asking me a question. But I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
answer your question with a question. Are we a species? Are we an animal?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. What happens when an animal deviates too strongly away from its design to withstand? Every animal has a species appropriate diet, right? They eat one diet.
Well, I mean, typically, yeah, but here's the thing. Um, we kind of got into this a little bit earlier. There is a species appropriate diet, but at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is what works. For example, a cow can eat, if you give a cow
Well,
meat,
hold on.
it'll
We
eat it.
we already Yeah, right, but that doesn't mean it's species appropriate, right?
It depends what you mean by species appropriate, but yes, I would agree
If
that's
you feed
correct.
it, if you feed a human being a Twinkie, if you feed a human being a Twinkie, they'll eat it too. And they can actually do totally fine in terms of health markers
Mm-hmm.
by eating Twinkies, right? We've seen this before.
Oh, of course, and they can
But it
survive.
doesn't mean that you would recommend. Right, right, exactly. And they might even be able to actually be healthier than the person next door that's trying to eat healthy by eating a vegan diet, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a different story. If you're saying because
Yes,
veganism is a big difference for a person eating a standard American diet, because the standard American diet, in a way, is healthier than cooked veganism. Because veganism is a broad term, but yeah.
right. No, I agree with that. I agree with that. So what ought the blueprint be for what the best diet is to be consuming for human beings? I mean, do you even agree that human beings should be eating one diet? I think you agree with that. You're a proponent of the primal diet, right?
Well, here's the thing: the primal diet. Listen, all these terms are kind of meaningless. The primal diet is a set of recommendations by Arjunus Vonderplanets, and it is almost exclusively raw foods. And these recommendations change depending on your condition. As I mentioned earlier, I don't want to go back into the diabetes talk, but a good recommendation is if
Well,
you have diabetes, you should be drinking goat's milk. If you don't have diabetes, you should be consuming cow's milk. And this also reminds me, Hippocrates, what is considered to be the father of modern medicine, he considered dairy to be like a medicine, and he had beliefs like this. And Hippocrates didn't know of any of these mechanisms and studies, but he still would find that, for example, different kinds of milk were better for different things. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I encourage people to do research
right.
on Hippocrates' belief
I
in
understand.
milk.
I understand. I understand. No, I do understand what you're saying. But there's plenty of people that say things that are true. A broken clock can be right twice a day, right? I mean, this is the thing. I'm not calling him a broken clock, but the point still stands. Someone can say
Hmm.
something that's true and also say a bunch of other things that are false.
Well, I mean, that's true. Here's the thing. If you want to know if I believe
Well,
Augenis is wrong on anything, there's certain things that he says that are definitely mild exaggerations, maybe large exaggerations if you see it that way. One example I'll give you is the frozen meat. He has sometimes stated that frozen meat loses 80% of its nutrition. That's definitely not the case. There's definitely some
what about
nutrition
the what
loss.
about the claim? So I have two things to say. What about the claim that salt makes your cells explode on impact, sodium, and
Mhm.
also the idea that you're putting forth right now is that he said, well, you lose about 50 or 80% of the nutrition in frozen meat. And you're saying that's false. But I mean, earlier you said that he did his own research and that's why you believe it. So what are we doing?
Yeah, and he actually spoke about this research, and he obviously understood himself that the logic is flawed
Did you
because,
read it?
well, I'll tell you right now what it was. So the 80% nutrient loss, it comes from a experiment. Well, study wouldn't be the right word to be an experiment. An experiment that he did on dogs and cats where he fed them frozen meats, and these cats developed skin issues. For example, one cat was losing hair. The cat was experiencing male pattern baldness. And then what he did is he separated these cats that had these skin conditions into two groups. One group, he fed them and applied raw butter topically, fresh raw butter. The second group received frozen raw butter. And the frozen butter group took twice as long to heal. Now, I understand there's some variables. For example, he didn't go into the diet of the animals. For example, the dog, what kind of meat was he feeding them? When he
Right.
switched
Yeah.
when he
No,
switched when he
I get
started
what you're
applying
saying.
the butter, yeah, you get the point.
It's yeah. Whenever you put an animal on a species inappropriate diet, that's what happens. Isn't that the logical extension here? Isn't that what you should be discerning from this
A-
and gathering?
Absolutely, and I'm sure you agree that previously
Okay,
frozen meat
right,
is not indicated, correct?
right, exactly. And so you believe okay, so you believe that that should be the blueprint by which we base what we ought to be eating on.
Again, it completely depends, but I mean, here's the
Well,
thing.
why does it depend with us? Why does it depend with us? That's what I'm
Well,
saying. Every animal in the wild has a species appropriate diet. So why is it different with us? Because
That's
you're
a
saying it now, it depends on context every time that I ask that question.
that is a great question. Let me answer that. So we have different needs today because of medical interventions because our bodies are extremely damaged today. Let me ask you this question. In the last 100 years, have we seen the greatest decline in health in human history?
Well, why is that? Why is that relevant? Is this based on the is this based on the idea that since we have more toxins in our body, we should completely reject a species appropriate diet, and it depends on context now?
I wouldn't say
Is that what you're
reject.
saying?
I wouldn't say reject a species appropriate diet because
Okay.
look, let's get into
Well,
this. Let me
okay. So
explain this real quick before you go. I'll let you go in a moment. So, everything we consume on this diet is technically natural, but some things could be considered unnatural. And natural, I think is a synonym for what you're saying, which is indicated. Something humans ate in the wild, something humans used to eat before we
I
invented
mean, it's
civilization and all this.
you can say that it's a synonym in the way that you're using it, but it isn't a synonym. But I understand what you're saying. Yes, the things that are naturally occur. Yes, okay, fine.
Now, what could be
Because
considered
there's a major distinction there. It's very important that we get that out of the way because that's very important, that distinction.
what could be considered unnatural or not indicated is juicing vegetables or even consuming milk. More so, though, making milk products
Right.
like cheese and butter. Because here's one thing I will say: have you seen videos of carnivorous animals drinking milk out of freshly killed animals?
Well, again, I mean, I want to. I only have so much time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what is the point of the question. I don't mean any disrespect, but I'm trying to get back to the point here, which is you believe that evolutionary bio. Well, you believe that the blueprint should be what we're designed to be eating. And what I'm
Right.
asking you is, let's just get to this. Yes, we agree that there's nuance here.
Mm-hmm.
Certain people are going to need different interventions because
Mm-hmm.
of modern context. That's why I say the best approximation given our modern context is what we should be aiming for. But let's put aside that nuance. What is the general template? What does the blueprint suggest about how we ought to be eating? Is it the primal diet or is it a carnivore diet that I'm speaking of, or at least something that's adjacent? Maybe you can make an argument and say, oh, it's more raw meat, whatever. Okay, fine. A little ambiguous when it comes to cooked and raw, but still, would you agree? Let's get this out of the way. Would you agree that our species appropriate diet contains well, lots of carbohydrates beyond, at the very most, 10 grams a day?
Uh, I mean, listen. So, species appropriate?
Well,
No.
hold on. Okay, well, hold on a minute. Okay, good. I just want
But
to make
what
okay.
humans ate
Species
in
appropriate, no.
nature
So,
is a different story.
why is it a different story? Isn't that the essence of the question?
Well, here's the thing. In nature, humans would do things that are relatively unhealthy, like consuming tubers, for example. You understand this, right? Humans definitely ate tubers at some point. Like
What do those tubers look like?
root vegetables,
What was the
like
carbohydrate? What was the carbohydrate content in those tubers? Sure, but what were the carbohydrate contents
that I don't
of those
know.
tubers?
That I don't know.
Okay. So you're asking that question for what reason? Are you suggesting that we should be eating tubers nowadays too, if in order for my logic to be extremely consistent? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I'm trying to make it very clear that there's a difference between natural and what I guess you would say is the most appropriate for a human being because not everything natural is good. However, if you just
Correct.
if you follow nature, you will be better off than 99% of people. So, my point is the primal diet specifically, we
Well,
do
what if I
certain
eat?
Go ahead.
Well, what if I eat a toxic leaf or something like that? You know what I'm saying? I mean, you get I this is the problem. You're
Mhm.
saying that we should be living in accordance with nature, and if you do that, you'll be better than 99% of people.
Mhm.
And then you've also said at the same time, you said nature and indicated are synonyms in the way that I'm using them, and now you're saying, well, some things that are natural aren't good for you, which actually now you've changed the definition of natural that you're using. I mean, again, I'm not trying to attack you here, but it's just one
Mhm.
of those things where I want to make sure that we're getting our terms correct because it seems to be it seems to be sowing some confusion here. I mean, what do you mean by living in accordance with nature? What does that mean for you? Which definition of nature are you referring to? Because if you believe it's indicated, if that's the synonym that you're using here, you're making it synonymous with indicated and ancestral consistent with what our genes are adapted to withstand, then I would totally agree with you. But we clearly disagree on what is species appropriate. Or actually, it seems like not. I mean, you've just said that no, it's not appropriate to be consuming more than 10 grams of carbohydrates a day. I mean, it seems like you just accept you conceded that point.
Well,
Am I wrong?
here's the thing. I'm trying to make it very clear that natural is different to what you're supposed to be doing. And I was using your term indicated, species indicated diet, so you can understand it because I know you don't like using the term healthy and whatnot. So I'll lay this right here.
Hmm.
What humans did in nature is slightly different to what is most optimal. However, it is extremely similar, so similar to the point where if you live by what humans did naturally, you'll be better off than 99% of people. Now, as I mentioned,
Okay, that's fair
some
enough, but
things,
what makes you think it's not optimal? What makes you think it's suboptimal?
well, a good example is humans in
Or
nature.
that diet?
Humans in nature would cook their meat and they would consume tuberous vegetables, and that's not an optimal thing to be doing. Now, here's the thing.
Yeah, but
Cooked
you know what context they used to be doing those things in, right? That's particularly the tuber thing. In fact, actually, the cooking meat is actually
starvation.
still quite ambiguous.
I do know the
Starvation.
cooking.
Okay, so once again, it depends on modern context, right? So I mean, we shouldn't be consuming tubers if we're not starving.
Well,
But
here's
I
the
also
thing. Some
say if you are
people
starving and the only thing around you is tubers, then you should be consuming it.
Well, some people are starving. If you're not very financially well off, you might be in that case because listen, meat's getting real expensive nowadays, and
I've done videos on that.
I can't really imagine how a
Yep.
person working minimum wage would be able to eat large amounts of meat every single day and sustain themselves. So in a way, we are starving. This is a modern self-induced starvation nowadays, and but again, I'm not
Yes.
I'm not saying that
In
you
which
should go out of your
case,
way to
yeah.
consume like potatoes or whatnot in order to save money. But you understand my point. But listen, the thing I want to make it very clear is there are certain protocols on this diet that must be done for modern problems. The best example is you've seen I drank like little over 8 ounces of vegetable juice throughout this stream. There's
Right.
celery, there's parsley, there's carrots in here. You wouldn't need this if you were healthy. If it wasn't for the and everything else, you
So
wouldn't be
hold on.
needing to consume this.
So you're suggesting that we need to consume that nowadays? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why?
Well, because mainly it's because of the alkalizing minerals in here because they will bind to the acidic, toxic heavy metals and they'll pull them out of the blood. Especially when you start consuming a fully raw diet. And listen, I understand you're going to hit me with the mechanisms and whatnot. When you start consuming a fully raw
Well,
diet,
but that's important though, right? I mean, you keep rejecting the mechanisms argument here. You're saying if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But isn't it important to understand the mechanism so that you know that it's the optimal thing to be doing?
it depends. It completely depends on the context. When we're just
All
talking
right.
about what is true, which is what I'm saying now, I'm specifically referring to the alkalizing minerals like the calcium, the phosphorus, that are in the vegetable juice. It'll bind to these acidic compounds that are in your bloodstream. When you consume a fully raw diet, the body will attempt to purge these heavy metals and it'll put them in the bloodstream. And you need the vegetable juice to bind with this. If not, you'll get certain symptoms.
Here's an interesting thing. Okay, there's plenty of things that I could say in response to that. The fact that Agenus does not have any of his research public, and so you're just depending on what he's saying in his book. Okay, there's plenty of things that I can touch on. Um, but let's just accept that for fun. Let's accept that premise for fun.
Sure.
What is the evidence that you should be doing that for the rest of your life?
You actually don't need to do it for the rest of your life.
So how
A,
long have you been doing it?
well, I've been drinking the juice. So I wasn't strict on the diet for about the first year, but I've been drinking the juice very religiously for almost 4 years.
Okay, 4 years. So
Hmm.
you think that you should still be consuming that then? Or do you think that should be a temporary protocol?
Right now, I definitely feel like I need it. The people I've known that have been doing this diet for a very long time, they'll typically outgrow the need around 15, 20 years in. Some people as early as like 6, 7, 8 years, but typically, yeah, it's a pretty lengthy thing. And also, I've known multiple people that have raised their children fully raw. None of their children have ever had a sip of vegetable juice. They're doing just fine. And some people can do this diet without the vegetable juice, but it's so beneficial in my experience. In so many different people's experiences, a lot of people I've known that try to eat fully raw will just completely quit. I'm not sure if you've ever seen this in any people you've spoken to, worked with. When they try to eat a fully raw meat diet, they'll end up quitting. You ever notice this?
No, because I don't work with people directly at the moment.
Or at
And
least
usually all anecdotes of people that have started consuming raw meat, they have they have not quit, and most importantly that they haven't gone back to cooked, actually.
Well, it depends on the influencer. I'm specific right now. I'm thinking of some certain influencers. A good example is Marcus Young. Marcus Young went back to cooking his meat, and I think he went back to eating raw, but he went back to cooking his meat because he tries to follow the spharage, the Goatus diet, which I'm sure you understand this, but the raw primal diet is what Goatus preaches, and the primal diet is what Augenis preaches, and what I believe in and what I follow. But the reason
Yeah,
I'm
well,
bringing this up,
Gotis says a lot of things. He says a lot of insane things,
he
and
does
the
say a lot
guy
of
is not
insane
mentally
things.
stable. So, I mean, I'd be taking everything that he said with no pun intended, a grain of salt
Well, I'll tell
that
you
he wouldn't be
this.
very fond of course.
I'll tell you this. I think he knows exactly what he's doing. I think he understands the things he's doing and saying is ridiculous, but he does it for monetary reasons because people love a guy that's crazy like that. So I think he knows what he's doing. I don't think he's necessarily crazy, but I think he knows what he's doing, and I don't think he's a good person. But um, either way, listen, the reason I brought this up, vegetable juice, it's just so crucial in my experience. So many people benefit from it, people that try this diet. So it's really as simple as that.
Is it though?
Yeah.
Is it that simple? What happens when you remove that and people get better?
What the.
What if they get even better? Because again, you're saying when people introduce this juice into their diet, they get better. But
Mm-hmm.
you didn't control for any surrounding variables. You didn't control for any of them. And so this is what I mean. Every time that we try and do these analyses, do these retrospective analyses in our brain, there's too much noise to consider. And so why don't you refer to the system that accounts for all of that noise with a very, very ordered sort of formula, evolutionary biology, to infer what we ought to be eating? Again, we both agree that modern context plays a role here.
Mm-hmm.
But what elements of modern context tell us that we should be consuming raw honey, raw vegetable juice? I mean, you already covered raw vegetable juice being the toxic heavy metals from medical interventions that you and many others are not very fond of. But
Mm-hmm.
is there any direct evidence of these vegetable juice actually doing the things that you're saying they're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it just Agnes saying things in his book?
Eddie, it's as simple as it works, and that's why I preach this lifestyle, and that's why I follow this lifestyle.
All right.
It's really as simple
Okay.
as
Well,
that.
I think that we'll end there then because it seems like we're going in circles. I think you would agree with that.
Yeah, I
Um,
think we've hit a brick wall.
Yeah, because I'm of the we have both agreed that just because something works doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing to do. I believe that we should be eating in a way that is in accordance with what our genes are most evolved to genotypically withstand across our genome, according to the Darwinian principles of evolution and the subsequent principles of indication. And you believe in eating in a way that is something that is associated with working in some people and maybe not working in other people, but working primarily based on your personal experience and of one experimentation. That seems to be what we're dealing with right now.
Right. Sure.
You've also admitted, you've conceded that species appropriate uh, behavior. We are a species. That every species basically has one diet for its speciation. You've admitted all of this, but you still believe in the primal diet. Again, you can do what you like. I'm asking you. I'm asking the question though. You believe in the primal diet still?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Well, no, I just wanted to make sure that I was representing your points properly here throughout this whole thing. I want to make sure that you get everything out that you wanted to say. I think that this was a productive conversation. We'll let the viewer decide on your end and my end as well what they think about this, and we'll go from there. Does that sound good?
Yeah, of course. Listen, it was fun talking.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree with that. Well, Leo, I will let you go. I will let you continue doing what you're doing. And to the viewer, I'm glad that you were here. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and I'll see you in the next one. So, see you, Leo.
Yeah, I'm out.
And
All right,
see you, viewer.
I'm not gonna end the stream just yet. Let me leave the Zoom call. But yeah, goodbye, Eddie. All right, let me switch cameras real quick. So, damn, dude, that was getting boring near the end. All right, webcam activate. Listen, you guys forced me to do this. All right, you guys were the ones that told me to speak to Eddie. Okay, you guys were the ones that told me to speak to Eddie. So I'll stay on for another like 20, 30 minutes, depend if it was interesting. Fuck. Yo, Face IQ, I saw your comment like a few minutes ago. That was really funny when it was like when chat is better content than the actual stream. Listen, I just put up with it. I didn't think that was entertaining. I didn't think that was that productive. He's like, listen, again, I'm not going to insult Eddie. I think that's a rude thing to do, and I don't think he necessarily had bad intentions in that stream, but he's like way too brain raped by science. He's like science brain raped, like really badly. And you know what? I kind of don't want to like throw out the autism accusations, but Bart K specifically, Bart K has old head autism. Like he's got old head autism where he's so stuck up in his ways, and you know, really like all Bart K has been doing for the last like multiple years is just defending his ideology. Like he really doesn't even provide like good information. He just, you know, just defends his position. But anyways, Eddie was more productive to talk to, but he is like, you know, I think the Zeta potential in his brain might be a little messed up. Let me tell you something. I spoke to him before we started up, and we specifically mentioned microbiology, and you guys know what I'm talking about. I think you know specifically that you know there's little evil men inside of you that are trying to kill you, and he told me he hasn't made up his mind on that. So that's an interesting thing, and I will say like if you don't recognize that microorganisms are your friend, I see a problem there. But he was enjoyable to talk to, other than the fact that he's a little mind raped from science. But that was much more enjoyable than Bart K. Well, here's the thing: the Bart K debate was so fun. That was so fun. That was so fun. I don't know if you guys saw that I was smiling the entire time during that. That was really fun. This one was this Eddie thing was a little bit more productive, I guess, in the sense where like we actually talked it out. But the thing is, I think he was like combating me too much. He was combating me too much. Because here's the thing, I could have pulled the same thing at him. You know, I could have hit him with the you know, on carnivore diet, why do you get hypothyroidism and all that. Also, Facek, if you're still in the chat, listen, I'm not a Peter and I'm never gonna Pete, but recently I've really gone into the power of the thyroid and whatnot. And listen, I know you be listening to Ray Pete stuff, and the thyroid is an extremely underrated thing. And on carnivore, your thyroid does like shrivel up and die, dude. So, you know, a big reason of that is just there's not consuming any raw foods. Who's got a Hitler mustache? Do I have a Hitler mustache? I don't think I do. Yeah, that is true. Take his age away from him and Bart K would be nothing. That's absolutely true. God damn, 200 viewers? Do people join just because they know Face IQ is here, or like, god damn? But yeah, honestly, I didn't even I had some other plans for today, but this is what we ended up doing. Oh yeah, hey Hassan, I did see your email, but I need to think about it. And I'm listen. So this past week, I've just been so busy. I was out of town working with somebody, dude. I gotta like, god damn, man. I have so much shit to do. Yeah, I think the fun's over. But yeah, what's going on? It was more of a debate than a discussion. I do agree. Yeah. But yeah, I will say, Ray Pete's an interesting guy. Ray Pete's really funny. I do want to make a video about Ray Pete eventually, but I'm studying everything Ray Pete wise just so that like I can make an educated video on him because I don't want to you know, make an uneducated video. Because I will say this, you know, I made the video about the Randall cycle. Looking back, I could have said a lot more things about it, but I kind of just hit him with the primal diet wisdom, you know. You know, I was gonna ask Eddie this, but we never even got around to it. I was gonna ask Eddie why he isn't tan. Like, if he cares about health, why isn't he tan? Like, he needs to get tan, dude. You guys can see my hairline. Look at that. So I made an Instagram video about the new thing that's going on. I made a listen. I'm really scared to say the name. I'm really scared to say the name because I don't want to get banned. But I made a Instagram video about it. Ray Pete voice annoys the shit out of me. I understand because the way Ray Pete talks, he's like, so when you consume sugar, it's like a nutrient, and caffeine is a nutrient. You know, you know what? I did want to say, I'm not gonna say the V word. I'll say iris. I did want to say hentai iris, but I feel like that's kind of not the most appropriate word to use. But I was thinking of the hentai iris. But dude, the hentai iris, you know what? I might as well just call it the hentai iris, right? But the hentai iris, it's hilarious how fake it is. Let me tell y'all, there's one of two things that's gonna happen. So this is either going to be like the swine flu, where nothing serious happens other than they're like, hey, you guys need to go line up and take take a certain something in order for you not to get the swine flu, or it's going to be like 2020. It's one or the other. It's one or the other. Yeah, the thing about monkeypox. Here's the thing about monkeypox. When monkeypox was being spread around, the news of monkeypox, I knew right away it wasn't going to be a thing. I knew it wasn't going to be a thing. Like, I knew the monkeypox thing would just blow over. I knew it was going to blow over, and it did blow over. It's very much possible the hentai iris is going to blow over. It's very much possible. However, I have a different, I feel different about this. I can't lie. I feel different about this. I feel like something's going to happen. Also, I did see earlier, Q, that you subscribed for 2 months. I appreciate that. And I appreciate all the support you've had, Q. I saw you were regulating the chat. I appreciate it a lot. There's not a lot of people you can trust in this space nowadays, but I think I can trust you, Q. Yeah, I did make an Instagram video about it last night. Excellent Health cut is really funny. Let me tell you guys something. I didn't want to say this because it's kind of rude. But dude, my primal diet guide, dude, it mogs. I hate to use this language, but dude, it mogs Excellent Health's primal diet guide to death. And I mean to death. To absolute death. Because I'm telling you guys right now, if you go watch Excellent Health's primal diet guide, if you skip through any part of it, it's just going to be him like talking about some bullshit. It's like he's not even going to be explaining the diet. And I remember I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched some of it, and instead of like talking about the nut formula, he's like, I forgot how Excellent Health talks. How does he talk? He's like this with his nipple out. And he's like, when you consume nuts, you need to grind them into a paste, and that's how. He was like, you need to turn them into a paste. He didn't even talk about the nut formula. I thought that was so strange. I do really like this hoodie. This hoodie was a gift from my friend Jake, the Raw Redux guy. Move the mic out of the way. Yeah. You know what's funny? Excellent Health. Somebody, and I got this channel deleted because I didn't like it. But somebody made a channel called Resident Raw 2, and they went on Excellent Health's live stream, and they started I don't remember what they said, but they started saying some heinous shit to him, and he was like, Resident Raw, I don't know why you do this. Why don't you leave me alone? I wish you the best. Like, he was like trying to hit me with the gaslighting isn't the right word because I don't want to sound like Frank Tufano, but he hit me with the You need to be a more loving person. And that wasn't me. I didn't comment that. That was somebody pretending to be me. And he thought it was me. He literally thought it was me. I guess he didn't see the big number 2 next to Resident Raw, but that literally wasn't me. Pressing excellent health in my spare time. It's fun, but listen. I just I don't want to bully him anymore. Cause let me tell you guys something. I actually kind of feel bad about this. I think I bullied Solar Youth out of YouTube. I think I bullied Solar Youth out of YouTube, dude. I think I bullied him out of YouTube, and I kind of feel bad, bro. I kind of feel bad about that. I kind of feel bad about that. He just hasn't, dude, he just hasn't uploaded. He just hasn't uploaded. In like over a year, over a month, he hasn't uploaded. He hasn't posted on Instagram. He deleted his school community. So, I feel a little bad about that. So I didn't want to do that to Excellent Health because people seem to like Excellent Health. Because let me tell you something. Excellent Health, even though the diet he promotes is kind of trash, strong dominates weak. So, oh, he's chilling. That's good to hear. But anyways, so even though Excellent Health's diet is kind of ass, he does promote not eating vegetable oil and getting lots of sunlight, and that'll make a huge difference in your health. So that's not the end of the world. So Solar Youth, Excellent Health, people will follow his protocol and they will get better. And I will say this, if you want to get healthier and like you're not willing to do the primal diet strict, cutting out vegetable oil and getting in the sun will do a lot for you. I mean, look at this. I saw somebody earlier say that like this is the healthiest I've looked since I started my YouTube channel. A big reason is the sun, but I will say this. From the time of like, when was it, like August to like December, I straight up wasn't eating that much at all. I wasn't eating like a lot at all. And like, listen, I don't want to say I was depressed, but around when I first started this YouTube channel, I wasn't particularly happy. And the reason why was just because of life circumstances. And honestly, I said this before, but I tried to make a YouTube channel a long time ago. I tried to make a YouTube channel many years ago, and it didn't work out. It didn't work out at all because, and I'm not saying that I didn't get like attention or anything, because I did get attention. The problem was nobody was supportive. Everybody was like, you're schizophrenic. I made a video about EMF and everybody's like, no, you're schizophrenic, bro. Your phone isn't going to do anything. People were like calling me, what's the guy from Better Call Saul? Chuck something. The guy from Better Call Saul, Chuck. People were calling me Chuck and shit. But now, like, yo, I mean, I don't want to take all the credit for myself, but now that like, I've been posting, I feel like I've given a lot of people the confidence to start talking about the primal diet and posting about the primal diet because, we've always had people that eat raw meat in the last, 5 years, give or take. But within, the last, 6, a little sooner, within the last, 4 or 5 months, I've seen a lot of people talking about the primal diet by Augenius specifically. Oh, Q, you getting out of here? Debate with Rod David? What am I going to debate him about? I do want to show you guys a song. I posted this on my Instagram story, but I'll show you guys eventually. Let me check up on what's viewership like. Still 226. God damn it. Is that correct? There are a lot of LARPers, but what I will say is here's the thing. People need to listen, it's okay if you don't want to do this diet strict, but you need to be honest. You need to be honest because a lot of people will say their primal diet or whatever, and then maybe honest isn't the right term, but a lot of people will say they're on the primal diet and then they post themselves eating a cooked steak on their Instagram story. Like, listen, you shouldn't really call yourself primal, and even if you do, you want to say, hey, listen, I'm not strict primal, I don't do everything 100%, but I still benefit from Augenius' teachings, because here's the thing. You don't even need to fully eat raw meat to benefit from you don't need to eat fully raw at all to benefit from Augenis's teachings. Like a good example is not fearing microorganisms. Like, the uh, I don't know if this is a good phrase, but last night, I was thinking about calling it the haunted iris. The haunted iris, because if you take the medical injection, your iris is going to be haunted. I don't know if you guys know what I mean by that, but if you listen to Augenis's teachings, you'll never be scared of that, and you'll never get any of the injections. Thank you, Lily GWTF. I appreciate that. But the lethality, though. I think you guys have noticed that I'm a little bit more coherent when I'm talking to myself. When I'm talking to other people, I don't know. I don't really know how to go about it sometimes, but yeah. I'll tell you guys this. For anybody that's in my school community, I filmed like 3 hours of videos within the last few days, and I've written a bunch of stuff, and I'm gonna be posting that right after this live stream ends. I got to work on a couple stuff. I got to finish some editing, but for YouTube, I should begin daily uploading tomorrow again. I have a few IRL videos. I have a video that I was supposed to post forever ago about like flight advice, like flying through an airport, because I did take a little business trip like a month ago, to a different U.S. state, and I managed to bring raw milk, raw cheese, unheated honey, onto the plane. I could have brought more stuff, I'm sure. I probably could have brought like raw chicken, raw everything, but I decided to just be humble and not try to bring too many things, because this was like an important flight and I didn't want to mess anything up. So that's what I did. But yeah, I'm going to post that video. Yeah, about the iridology thing? My eyes have changed. It kind of depends on the lighting, but you can see in some of the photos, my eyes are very bright. Some of the videos, and specifically, my eyes are very bright. Right now, they look really dark, but it's just the way the camera is. My eyes have lightened up. My eyes used to be like dark, dark, dark brown, like nearly black, and they've lightened up. I haven't had significant iris changes. I have a spot. I forget if it's in my right or my left eye, but I have a spot in my eye that has not gone away. That spot is more than likely mercury, but it hasn't gone away yet. And here's the thing, I haven't done moldy berries much. I've tried moldy berries twice. Each time I tried moldy berries, I did one berry because I'm terrified of the moldy berries. I'm terrified of the moldy berries because I've heard a lot of horror stories about them. Here's the thing though, Augenis says that the true eye color, if you have brown eyes, it's supposed to be amber. I'm not 100% sure what he means by amber, but if you mean amber where it's like, I'm not saying yellow eyes, because I told somebody that your eyes are supposed to turn yellow as a joke, and they're like, you mean alcohol toxicity, like cirrhosis of the liver failure. Specifically, what I think Augenis is referring to is you're not supposed to have very dark brown eyes. Your eyes are supposed to be a very light brown or blue. What I will say is 100% correct. You're not supposed to have green eyes. You're supposed to have blue eyes. I've seen in every single long-term primal dieter I have seen, green eyes will turn blue. However, I know multiple people. There's one in mind that's been on the diet for 25 years who still has brown eyes. His eyes are still brown after 25 years. However, his eyes are a very light brown. A very, very light brown. Hazel eyes are either like they're supposed to be true blue or brown. Like hazel eyes generally what they are, usually it's like a blue eye with green in them. And the green typically, if I'm not wrong, because listen, I'm no iridology expert, typically the green eyes are supposed to be very, very severe lymphatic system congestion. Yeah, amber is light brown, but if you look up photos of amber eyes, you'll see like some eyes that like almost look like they're yellow. Yeah, green is not genetic. Somebody said something earlier that was interesting. What was that? Oh yeah, Andreas. What is Andreas up to? So, The funny thing is, and let me tell y'all something. There's a few primal creators. Some of them aren't exactly creators, but they're just like people that post primal stuff that have kind of begun jester maxing on community notes, where basically they'll post a note on the community where they're like, do you drink vegetable juice? Yes. No. What's vegetable juice? And they like post these notes every day, and I see them on my feed. And Andreas is one of them. I see Andreas on my feed a lot, and I saw him talking about how he got his sheep. Oh, that burp tastes like celery. But I saw him talking about how he got his sheep. His sheep had a little medical intervention done. Listen, I'll tell you this. I think Andreas is a lost individual. I think he's a lost soul. Primal Oli, thank you for the €2 donation. Let me heart your message. Do you think we will be viral as Looks Maxing? I don't think so. And I'll tell you this. There is an unfortunate interlap between Looks Maxing and Primal Diet. I don't know if I've made this clear, because I saw somebody that was like, Resident Raw is a scammer because he promotes Looks Maxing. I don't promote Looks Maxing. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now. If you want to look as possible if you want to look as good as possible in as short of a time as period, this isn't the diet for you. If you want to look as good as possible in a short period of time, you should inject TRT into your butt cheeks. You should inject whatever other, steroids. You should inject some peptides into your face. You should get reasonable surgeries done. But listen, I don't recommend this, because I'm going to tell you right now, there's something I want to talk about. And I'm not afraid, but I kind of haven't. What the fuck was that noise? Okay. I haven't talked about it because I'm kind of worried about pushback, but basically something I want to say is that, like, to have a good life and find a romantic partner, there's some aura that is necessary. Because listen, I have the exact same facial structure that right now, the facial structure I have is the exact same facial structure I had when I started making YouTube videos. And right now, I have significantly more aura than I did when I first started making YouTube videos. And my facial structure hasn't changed. Now, obviously, I'm more tan. My hair is longer. I've put on a lot of weight. So there's like a little aura. There's an aura going on when it comes to, like, attraction. And I'm not referring to clout or personality necessarily. Like, I'll give you a good example. What's this? I say this so many times. If you guys have been watching me for a while, I know you're sick of me saying this, but Tony Soprano, he's not overtly an attractive guy. He's also not hideous, but he's not like a super attractive guy. And he's got aura. And women go crazy over Tony Soprano, even though he's a fat, bloated, I want to say the R word so bad, but I don't want to do that. But he's a fat, bloated, he's like fat and bloated. And women go crazy over him, dude. Women go crazy over him. Let me tell you guys something. You put the whole black pill thing is the male gaze, in a sense, where it is true. Men only care about appearance. Men only care about appearance. When a man doesn't care about a woman's personality at all. At all. Man could give less of a shit of a woman's personality. Man, they couldn't care, bro. Like, let me ask y'all a question right now. How many of y'all, if there was a baddie, let me tell y'all, $25 max, I know what that's referring to. Let me ask y'all a question. The woman of your dreams, your high school crush, if she came up to you and offered to marry you and have a beautiful relationship, but she has a horrible personality, she won't even talk to you, she won't do the diet, she'll refuse to do the diet, will you marry her and have a relationship with her, yes or no? Put yes if you would marry the Stacy with zero personality. Put no if you wouldn't marry the Stacy with no personality. Damn, I'm seeing a lot of no. Holy shit, okay. I'm kind of surprised by that. To be honest. I'm surprised by that. I'm very much surprised by that. But what I will say is I still think that men generally don't care about personality that much. I think women, listen, I don't want to say personality because it's not exactly personality. It's like the whole aura thing. You know what I mean? Like, if a guy isn't super attractive, but he's got a lot of money and he's got like, like a dad build, if you will, he's a strong guy, can protect you, women will be into that. And it also comes about when interacting with just other people that, not people you're trying to like get in a sexual relationship with. Like I mentioned before, this one guy who's been on the diet for a very long time too, that I've been interacting with, and I'm hoping to meet and hopefully get an interview with him. He has this energy to him that's just insane, dude. Like the energy he has is so impressive. Like he actually made me change the way I behave because I spoke to him and I was like, "Oh my goodness, like this is the kind of individual I want to be around," which means I need to, more closely resemble this. So I changed my behavior. And let me tell you something. Going back to the Eddie thing, I watched. You guys know who Hair Cafe is? Who knows who Hair Cafe is? Hair Cafe made a series of videos on Eddie, and a friend, an associate of mine, told me to watch Hair Cafe's video about Eddie. And that video honestly just looked horrible for Eddie. It looked horrible for Eddie because here's the thing, even though Hair Cafe said a lot of things that are refutable, like he's like, he said LDL, high LDL causes heart disease, and humans are omnivorous, but we eat mainly plant foods, which is just completely untrue. While humans are technically omnivorous, in any environment, even if it was like 200 years ago, humans still ate over 90% animal products. Like humans generally just ate a lot of animal products, a lot of meat, a lot of dairy. But either way, Hair Cafe was just, he seemed so much more calm, so much more collected, so much more reasonable than Eddie, because Eddie was just like crashing out. So honestly, you know what I think Eddie needs, dude? I'm gonna tell you right now. Eddie needs a lubrication formula and 3 hours in 10 UV sunlight. A lubrication formula, maybe even two, because he's a little skinny. I'm sure you guys picked up on that. He's a little skinny, bro. He's a little skinny. He's a little skinny. But he needs two lubes and 3 hours in the sun, 10 UV. And I think he'll have an epiphany. Here's the thing. I think Eddie, Eddie's really science based and all that. I think if Eddie tried what I preach, he would think differently. I'm telling you, give Eddie rotten meat, give him some rotten pork or something, give him a lubrication formula. He'll feel the difference. Also, Eddie was cute, bro. I was thinking about that. I want to call him cute. He is kind of cute. Like I'd kiss him. 145 at 5'11". Also, Levi Ackerman. I watched Attack on Titan when I was younger. I do not wear contacts. My vision is still buns, but I can read the computer now. I can barely see anything like beyond like 2 or 3 feet though. Actually, more like beyond like 5 feet. But I can't see nothing. But yeah, no, Eddie's a little cutie patootie. But I can't talk. I can't talk shit because he does have a wife, bro. And I don't. So I do want to get a lube formula inside of him. But yeah. Be honest, do you fuck with girls? Let me tell y'all something. I've considered like pretending like I'm gay because I think it would make things easier, honestly. You guys can believe I'm gay if you want. I really don't care. Honestly, I think I would prefer you guys to think that I'm gay. What happened to Lurky? Dude, Lurky, apparently she got exposed recently as like being distributing child exploitive material, if you know what I'm talking about, the cheese pizza. So that's crazy. Yeah, zest maxing is slept on, dude. Being zesty is kind of cool. Being zesty, bro. You know, I have my ears pierced and I have my septum pierced. I just don't wear the piercings. Do I have Do I have? No, I don't. But I could demonstrate. I have holes in my ears and my nose as well. Also, it's not that bad, but the inside, like the cartilage inside my nose, is a little damaged from, inserting things up there. There's a YouTube video I want y'all to I want to show y'all. I posted on my Instagram video. But how we going? This stream's been going for 2 hours. Let me see how this is. Dang, we're still at 200. That's really impressive. I'm surprised we're reaching those numbers. I might as well keep going. Nobody's playing the Primal Diet Roblox game. It wasn't sustainable. Yeah, I am seemingly the most popular primal dieter at the moment. A lot of people spread bullshit about me though. I spoke about this in the other stream, but let me tell you guys something. When somebody starts getting traction, people will just start making shit up about them. There's a lot of schizophrenic dudes that see me as a threat, dude. I like it though because let me tell you, all attention is good attention. Because people will they'll come to the stream or whatever, and they'll interact with me. They'll see how I am, and they'll see that I'm chill. It's not only that. Dude, people are just deranged. You know what I'm surprised of? I'm surprised nobody that I knew in real life has like said anything about me because dude, I had a very interesting career path when I was a teenager. I'm surprised nobody has. Well, here's the thing. I do know that people that knew me in like high school and stuff have seen my stuff because I met a girl when I was working at a college not too long ago, and a girl that I knew from high school found me and she said she knew about my YouTube channel and shit. She might be watching right now. Who knows? I recorded a oops, I almost just said it. I recorded a haunted iris video for YouTube, but I don't think it would be good. Honestly, I'm gonna tell you guys right now. On my Instagram, I'm posting a lot more risky stuff. Like I was just checking on it right now. Like, look. Ooh, don't want the mic to pick that up. But yeah, look, on my Instagram, I posted my thoughts on this. If you want to know my thoughts on the haunted iris, the thing that's going on right now, watch that video. I'm going to post some more stuff on my private community today about that more in depth. I went really in depth with it, how there's a lot of 33 involved, and the guy on the boat is an actor, and you can see him reading a script and whatnot. But honestly, Instagram, I feel pretty safe posting stuff about this on Instagram because there's a variety of other creators like, what's his name? Beyond Terrain. You know what's funny? I kind of beefed with Beyond Terrain at some point, and I actually regret that. I was kind of an asshole to him for no reason. But Beyond Terrain, we do have conflicting opinions. He believes that the V word doesn't exist. The V word definitely exists. It's just the way you get it is not what people think it is. But anyways, um he's been posting about this forever, like years. He's just been posting on Instagram about stuff like this, and he hasn't gotten banned. So I think it's pretty safe to talk about this on Instagram. It might even be safe to talk about it on YouTube, but honestly, I can't take that risk because here's the thing, dude. If I get if I get banned on YouTube, that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. If I get banned on Instagram, whatever, I make a new account. Getting banned on Instagram is a big deal. Yeah, you know what I was thinking of doing You guys know what's his name? You guys know this is so funny. Maybe some of you really young guys don't know who he is. You guys know Keemstar from Drama Alert? You know Keemstar is banned from YouTube. Keemstar is not allowed to be on YouTube, but he literally owns a channel called Drama Alert. And the reason why Keemstar is able to run Drama Alert is because he's technically not the owner of the YouTube channel. He's the host. And I've been thinking of doing something along those lines where I'm the host of this YouTube channel. This YouTube channel isn't technically mine. I'm only the host. Because I'll give you another example, like Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is banned from YouTube, but you can put Nick Fuentes in your YouTube videos because he's banned from having a YouTube channel, but he's not banned from actually being in YouTube videos. So that's kind of what I've been thinking of doing. Because I don't know, it's risky. The email baddie never. I don't think the email baddie actually ever watched my video. Let me pull that up. What was her name? What was her name? Can who remembers the name of the emo girl I made a video on? Was it like Lily something? I'll check right now. Celery juice burp. I want to see Lily Kane, bro. Her name wasn't that. Just give me a second. I'll check right now. I'll tell you right now what it is. Man, that shit got 8K views. I knew exactly what I was doing when it came to the title. Maybe if somebody tells me the name, I could speed up this process. Nikki Angel. That's exactly what it was. Nikki Angel. Let's see if she responded. I don't think she did. I know she see these comments though. No response, but bro, I know she's seen this. I know she saw that, bro. I know she probably laughed with her boyfriend. She's like, "Oh my god, look at this guy. He's so crazy." A few people asked some interesting questions. Let me go up and see. Something about some guy in my Discord. Listen, Discord is a hellhole. I regret opening that Discord up because I hate putting up with all the people in there. I would ban everyone from that Discord because honestly, I just wanted to delete that Discord, which I ended up doing. I didn't delete it fully just for archive purposes, but I closed it. And my Discord is completely off limits. Discord server is completely off limits. And I will never open another Discord server, even a paid Discord server. I'm never opening a Discord server ever again. Discord's a hellhole, and I'm thinking about near the end of the year, I'm going to stop using Discord, and I'm probably going to move to a different app like Signal or something like that. Discord's a hellhole. Discord sucks. Telegram's a hellhole. I'm not using Telegram either. Telegram, listen, I'm telling you right now, there's some exceptions to this, but everyone that uses Telegram is like a schizophrenic pedophile. Telegram is a hellhole. I would consider late. I would consider like very, very, very late. Like in a year's time making a public Signal group, but I'm not moderating it. I'm not moderating that thing myself. I would need like a group of very trusted moderators to moderate that thing. But that's not something that's happening anytime soon. Yeah, Signal is way better than Telegram. Telegram is horrible, dude. Telegram, not only that, Telegram's also compromised. The owner of Telegram, he might have been framed. He might have been framed for this. But the owner of Telegram got caught with like child exploitative material or something like that. And he turned in exchange for like a lesser sentence or something like that. He gave them the keys to Telegram. So the federal, not the feds, but like Interpol, like big boy people, they have access to Telegram. So Telegram's not even safe. Signal probably isn't even safe either, but fuck, you know, what are you gonna do? Still better than Telly, because Telly is confirmed. That's confirmed compromised. You know, even if you're suspicious of Signal, I'd much rather use that than an app that is confirmed compromised. So, you know, screw that. You know, my friend Jake, he had a dream. He had a dream that there was a disease spreading, and the disease started with an H. I should make some new stickers, right? I haven't updated the stickers. I don't know if my skull grew, but I was fed baby formula, and I do have like some messed up bone structure. I have a hip dip, like a curved hip, and I definitely have like a mild scoliosis that has significantly improved to the point where it's not really noticeable unless your like eyes are trained. But yeah, I've had like a crooked, messed up spine my whole life. I also learned recently, I was misdiagnosed with cystic fibrosis for some reason. I thought I had cystic fibrosis, and then I confirmed with my mother, and she's like, "Oh no, it was a misdiagnosis," because I had some kind of lung problems. Oh shit! What the fuck? The hell did I just do to my? Well, I just broke the fucking the thing there. It's not the end of the world. My skull is pretty big, pretty wide. I do have like, you know, the thing about me, my face is pretty, even though like I was baby formula fed. Here's the thing, I'm going to tell you right now, funnily enough, the most well developed part of my body for whatever reason is my skull. My skull is much more well developed than the rest of my body because my shoulders are relatively thin. You can even see like my collarbone is really thin. I also, you can't really see it well because I've put on weight, but I have a hole in my chest. I straight up like right here, I have a hole in my chest. I straight up have a hole in my chest. I don't know what's up with that, but I have a hole in my fucking chest. And I will say I've never had any wisdom teeth pulled. I did have pretty extensive dental work done when I was young though. You know what's funny? My parents. Somebody asked if my family does primal. They eat normal foods, but my parents recently started drinking raw milk. Finally. Only took like goddamn near 5 years, dude. I do know what hydroxyapatite is. It seems beneficial, but it is the way they produce it is synthetic, so I don't know what to make of it. I'll tell you what though, there's no reason to ever use fluoride when hydroxyapatite exists. What do you mean by did I money max? The thing is, I looked into hydroxyapatite, right? Because I was curious. Because here's the thing, like I'll entertain that. You know, maybe your diet isn't on point. Maybe you're still eating cooked, and you can't fully commit. Maybe you could benefit from hydroxyapatite, but you can't really get hydroxyapatite in a natural like the isolated chemical. You can't really get the isolated chemical. You have to buy hydroxyapatite toothpaste. And if you look for hydroxyapatite toothpaste, all of them literally have a bunch of horrible chemicals. Sure, they're fluoride free, but I'm telling you right now, I would rather consume fluoride than some of those chemicals that are in there. Because, yeah, fluoride is bad, but, like, fluoride isn't the worst chemical in the world. I do think, like, listen, while fluoride is bad, I'm not saying fluoride is good. But while fluoride is bad, I feel like people put an emphasis on fluoride way too much compared to other compounds. Like, there's a whole website about fluoride and how toxic it is, and yeah, it's bad, but like, why don't we have more things about like mercury? Like, dude, like that's way worse. That's way worse than fluoride. Where'd the chat go? There it is. You know what's funny about titanium dioxide? When I first started, so I learned about like diet stuff like May or like June. Yeah, like May or like June. I think it was May of 2021. And obviously, I didn't know anything at the time, but I learned cheese, meat, eggs are good for you. And I started just eating lots of pasteurized cheese. And one of the cheese, so one of the cheeses I was eating, it was like this white cheese, and I thought it might be better because, I was thinking, I was like, well, I know Kraft singles are bad for you. I imagine that like any cheese that's not yellow is probably better for you because the yellow cheeses or the processed cheeses are usually yellow. So I started eating this random white cheese. And for whatever reason, I didn't look at the ingredients until I had eaten like pounds of it. And then I looked at the back. It has fucking titanium dioxide in it. Literal titanium in it. Just ground titanium in it. I was just eating straight titanium. And recently they've been putting out some stuff about titanium dioxide that it like literally causes cancer and all that. Let me look that up and see. I think they might have been talking about banning it or something. Hold on. Okay, so you know what it was? It got banned in 2022 in Europe, which is funny because in 2021 I was eating titanium dioxide. And then, right after that it was banned. And I'm seeing people on Reddit right now talking about how it's toxic. If people on Reddit tell you that something is toxic, then you know it's toxic, dude. We could get a Jake stream. We could get a Jake stream, honestly. You guys are actually gonna get a Jake video soon. I filmed a video with Jake. So you guys are gonna get a Jake video soon. A Jake stream. That'll probably happen. I do know who Ellie Phillips is. I do know who Dr. Ellie Phillips. Dr. Ellie Phillips thinks sodium fluoride is beneficial for mineralizing teeth, and she thinks hydroxyapatite only puts a coating on the teeth that can even block remineralization. That's interesting. I didn't know she said that. I do know who Dr. Ellie Phillips is, but um, here's the thing. So I know of two doctors, Dr. Ellie Phillips and Dr. Michelle something. I forgot her last name. Michelle, she's really well known for being against root canals. She says root canals are toxic. She has a holistic dentistry where she offers root canal removals and mercury filling removals. Dr. Ellie Phillips is alternative as well, but I've seen her with like Colgate and stuff. So she's a little bit more like, grounded. But by grounded, I mean like, generic modern medicine, right? Dr. Ellie Phillips says she's seen dentin grow back. Dentin, so on your teeth you have enamel, and then inside you have dentin, and then you have two other layers that I can't remember the name right now. So dentin is believed to not grow back at all. Enamel is believed to grow back. You can grow back enamel. It's believed that dentin cannot grow back. Dr. Ellie Phillips says that she has seen with her own two eyes dentin grow back. Ogenus And one guy I know who's been doing the diet for a very long time, they both claim they've seen dentin grow back. Dr. Michelle, whatever her name is, the lady that opposes root canals, she says she's never seen dentin grow back, and she doesn't believe you can grow dentin back. So it's very interesting how both of these like alternative dentists have different opinions on that. So that's an interesting thing, dude. Honestly, I guess I could talk about this, but I'm pretty against any kind of orthodontist thing. I was thinking about making a video about this, but I don't really know how to format it. But here's the thing: I don't think you should I think in a lot of cases you shouldn't straighten your teeth because your teeth are crooked for a reason. You know, a good example is if you get your teeth. This doesn't always happen. And listen, there are some cases where I think straightening your teeth could be beneficial. And let me make this clear: the diet will not fix crooked teeth. Won't fix. It won't happen. Even like really severe dental problems will not fix on diet. You can't fix very severe dental problems with diet at all. Maybe in like 40 or 50 years, but we don't know. Either way, you know, you don't want to do that for like 40 or 50 years just to fix teeth. But anyways, where was I going? So, here's the thing. If you straighten your teeth, you might not have room for your tongue, and your tongue needs really proper mouth posture for your general like facial health, right? And here's the thing. A big reason why your teeth aren't straight, like for example, my teeth, I don't know what the exact term is supposed to be. I'm going to use this remote as an example. Pretend this is the side view of a tooth. Your teeth are supposed to be straight like this. My teeth are like this. You know, the top row, they're like that. They're like crooked forward. And the reason why they're crooked forward like that is because they need space for my tongue. So if I straighten my teeth, my tongue wouldn't have room in my roof. It wouldn't have room in my mouth. So my tongue posture would be fucked, and I'd have to become like a mouth breather. Because I'd have to have my. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. So I would not straighten my teeth personally. For me, there's different cases. You know, I'm not gonna downright say don't straighten your teeth, but for me, I would never straighten my teeth. I'd also never get a palate expander, but that's honestly a little too complicated. Some people swear by the palate expander thing. I don't think it's a good thing to do. I don't think it's a great idea. I know some people benefit from it. I know maybe if you like can't breathe through your nose, maybe you could benefit from it. But one thing I will say, palate expander for facial aesthetics, horrible idea. It's not gonna horrible idea. Horrible idea. It's gonna make you look fucked. If you have very severe breathing problems, maybe. I mean, obviously they're beneficial for expanding the airway, but I don't know. It's kind of like saying, it's kind of, listen, I know this is like a different example, but I'm trying to think of a, something I could, give an example to. It's kind of like saying that because you're tired of your nails growing back, you cut your finger off. Like, yeah, that works, but maybe that's not a great idea because, you know, the palate expanders, really what they do is they split your skull in half, basically. I don't know. I'm not, I'm not really convinced they're a great thing. And even then, you know, if you get a palate expander, like a maxilla expander, the top half of your head is going to be massive and then the bottom half is going to be small. So in a way, you kind of need to get a double jaw surgery if you get the palate expander done. And that's just, double jaw is horrible for your health. The recovery is terrible. You're going to be like, you know, the expander plus the jaw surgery, you know, you're going to be over $50,000 in debt. So you're going to have metal all over your face. It's not something I could recommend, dude. I do know that Oscar Patel is secretly a primal dieter. You know, somebody told me to watch Oscar Patel's videos, and I made a video. I privated it a long time ago, but I made a video, kind of like about, you know, about Oscar, like a reaction video about Oscar Patel, and I was like, I called it cringe. I called him a shill and cringe or whatever. But the reason I called him that is just because He was selling this like thing you put on your nose that makes you breathe better. Honestly, I think it's my internet's messing up. Let's see if I'll wait a little bit. But yeah, basically he was just selling a dumb product that I don't think probably works. But I don't know. I don't honestly. I think Oscar Patel is probably one of the better people in the health community. You know, obviously he sells a product and whatnot. But listen, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Like something I want to make clear is like it doesn't matter if you sell a product. You know, nobody's forced to buy anything from you. Nobody needs to buy anything from you. But you know, I haven't really seen any wrongdoing for Oscar. Oscar, like I said, he literally does the primal diet secretly. He does the primal diet secretly. Yeah, dental cleanings aren't a bad thing. You might want to watch Chris from Eat Raw Meat's video. I have something I'm going to be posting about this on my community, but you don't have to join. You could just look at Chris's video. But I have had hardened tartar before from not so amazing uh, life choices when I was younger. Dental cleaning, you got to be careful though. It's a good thing if you got tartar, but you got to be careful because if you clean too much, you'll mess your teeth up. No, you should get tartar removed. You don't. Tartar's not a good thing. You want to get tartar removed off your teeth. Bro, watch Frank Tufano's Marpy short. He made a short about Marpy. Let me watch this. Zero reason to do Marpy. I'm watching the with captions. Why not just get braces and then try to get double jaw? No, I haven't seen this before, but like this is just common. Like this is like pretty common knowledge. This is like pretty common knowledge that like um palate expanders are not a good thing for facial aesthetics. And even if you get facial aesthetic done, even if you get it done for facial aesthetics, you're gonna have to get a double jaw to make yourself look fine. So it's fucked. Oh. Oh my god, he has another Marpy short where he put a photo of what's this guy's name? Horse something. I forgot his name. Yeah, oh yeah, that's him, Michael De La Rosa. I do know this Michael, this Sun Horse guy, he does regret getting Marpy. That dude, it's kind of crazy how that dude had like multiple viral videos, and then he kind of just like disappeared. I don't know. That was kind of like a glitch in the Matrix or something, dude. Tartar forms on your teeth no matter what you do if you don't brush your teeth. You have to brush or you get tartar on your teeth. You definitely get less plaque on this diet, but plaque doesn't completely go away. I want to show you guys a video. I think I might wrap this up soon. I'm never gonna straighten my hair, bro. But I'll tell you what, this is what my hair looks like washed. It gets crazy if I don't wash this. And I think I look a little cute if I tie it back, but I'm not into that. Justice for Europeans. Listen, if you Europeans want me to help you, you gotta help me, okay? Because I don't know any sources in Europe, okay? I don't know nothing about that, and it's very difficult to do this diet outside of America, honestly. It depends on the country. Very much depends on the country, but honestly, like America is the best place to do this diet. Specifically, here's the thing though: you do need to make a good amount of money if you want to do this diet well in America. Listen, I'm gonna tell you right now the most optimal America plan for you. If you want to do this diet perfectly, be as healthy as humanly possible in America, live in Florida, and you need to have about $1,000 a month to spend on food. And that's honestly, that gives you enough money to be very liberal with what you eat, but not enough money to just like buy the most expensive nice things. But $1,000 a month, and I mean you will need some starting capital because here's the thing: the Green Star. Listen, if you're starting this diet and you have zero information, zero equipment, Green Star juicer or a similar juicer, high quality juicer. Here's the thing: if you buy those like shitty juicers from Amazon, they'll work for celery and honestly carrots a little. I don't know if they would work for carrot honestly. Even with the Green Star, the carrot is kind of a little difficult to juice. But anyways, um, it'll work well for celery and those vegetables, but you can't really make coconut cream with them. So you're gonna have to spend real nice on a real nice juicer around on the cheaper end of things like $200. If you're lucky, dude, you could find a Green Star for like $50, but that's usually in the middle of like bumfuck nowhere, not Florida, where Florida's a nice place, lots of people here. So let's just be a little bit average. So you're gonna spend $200 on the juicer, and then for your Oster blender plus the glass jars, that's like $150, dude. So we're at $350. Bathtub equipment, no, probably like another like $300. Listen, bro, to get all the equipment, it's gonna run you like somewhere in the $1,000 range, and then you spend about $1,000 a month on groceries. And like I said, this gives you space. Like this gives you room because you could hypothetically do this, and I have done it before. You could do the diet around like 600, 500, like 500, $600 a month. But if you want to like really have some room, like 1,000 a month plus that $1,000 for equipment and other stuff and whatnot, and then you live in Florida, for specifically South Florida, to get a lot of sun, and boom, that's you get all your food ordered to you. That's the thing. You have to get your food ordered to you. Primal Oli, I'm happy to take your recommendations for Germany and Poland. Message me on Instagram and just tell me who you are. But listen, you don't necessarily need to spend $1,000 a month on this diet. $1,000 a month just gives you room, makes you comfortable. If you want to like literally live like a king, if you want to just eat nothing but oysters, drink blood and milk mixed together, drink like gallons of cream, have like fresh cheese, like freshly made weekly cheese delivered every single day, it'll probably run you like 1,500. Just message me, bruv. I'll take a little screenshot, but the thing is, even though this diet is expensive, in the long run, you are saving your money because, long run, you are going to like get cancer and all that. And also, let me tell you something. I've looked into it because I want to write like a guide on, eating cooked foods and eating like, processed foods that you can like give your parents, or like, you have a little niece or something like that. Like, how to like make a healthy cooked diet. And honestly, dude, it'd just be straight up cheaper to do the primal diet in certain cases because the price of like, for example, like healthy cookies, like, I mean, there really aren't like great options, honestly, but like those grain-free cookies. And you know what gave me this idea? During December, around that time, December, like, or like very early January, I was working this certain job where I was in like a convenience store type area, and they had these like organic grain-free cookies, and I was like, what? They make grain-free cookies? And I looked at the ingredients. they were a little too harmful for me to consume. You know, they had like some preservative, I think it was potassium something, and like they had natural flavors, and they had pectin, and they had like a very wide variety of nuts and seeds in there. Like it's not something I would consume, but honestly, that wouldn't be a bad thing to give to like your parents instead of them eating like vegetable oil, white, glyphosate, white flour, wheat cookies. But the problem is the bags are they 4 ounces or 8 ounces? I don't remember. I think they're 8 ounces, but it was like $6, and I was like, dude, for $6 you can like buy a pound of chicken. Well, the chicken's a little more expensive than that, but you get a pound of chicken for like $7, like very similar price. So eating stuff like this is so expensive, and then even if you cook your meat, bruv, when you get like grass-fed chuck roasts, a steak. When you cook a steak, bro, you lose a lot of the water content, and you have to cut some of it into specific like shapes so it cooks well. You're just wasting money, dude. You're like honestly, there are certain cases where the primal diet is cheaper than like a healthy cook diet. I've been seeing people talking about the fact that I always squint my eyebrows. It's because I have an industrial light pointed at my face right now. But here's the thing. I don't know how true this is, to be honest, but I heard, hunter eyes. I heard that hunter eyes are formed in nature by squinting in the sun. Cause think about this. Like, look at my eyes when it's not like very, blank expression, and then I squint. It's like the hunter eyes. Doesn't that make sense? You squint in the sun, and you get the hunter eyes going. I did grow up in the hood, hilariously. That's why, if you watch some of my older videos, I talk a little hood. I did grow up in the hood. My stomach just growled. I'm getting a little hungry. You talk very white but very black. I can step it. Let me prepare. I can step it up, cuh. I can talk a little hood too. You know how it is, cuh. I just sometimes I talk a little white, cuh. You just gotta read the room. Gotta read the room. Yo, when I made that video with Devarius, that's his name. When I made that video with Devarius, you can tell I started talking more hood. It depends on who I'm talking to. I'll change the way I speak. All right, I do think I want to wrap this up a little bit. I do. There's a video I want to show you guys though. I posted it on my Instagram. Might be a little risky to show this, but let me deactivate real quick. Let me switch. Let me switch to. Give me a second. Nobody leave. Give me a second. Bear with me, y'all. Just give me 1 second. Alright, let me show y'all this song. So I posted this on my Instagram story. Let me just switch Google. I just have to make it clear for legal purposes, I do not agree with any of this. and we are all going to laugh at this guy's video because he's saying some extremely conspiratorial things and things that are very bad. You know, medical industry misinformation. This is a bad thing. I can't agree with this. So let me just play this song real quick. Also, let me tell you. So listen, this video, you guys can see the link right here. You guys can see the video. I honestly, I have a request. If you guys are still in here, I want you to like this video. I want to get this video to 1,000 likes. Yeah, this is just a song. I'm not saying I agree with anything they say in this. I will say I think the song's a little corny, but maybe some of you guys will like it.
The only way that a human being can get a bird flu or a swine flu is if it is injected in them.
So how did we get swine flu then?
It's been made in a factory and injected.
Say no to the vaccine. Needle on the record, put the needle on the record, put the needle on the record when the drum beats go.
I put the needle to the record cause the needle is defective and the needle breaks the record when the needle is the method for prevention of the fever, bringing death to the receiver. There's no effort in believing that the method feeds the fever. See the leader, diseases are invented in the lab. One believes it on reading recent mentions of the jab, centered in a grand scab of corruption and lies, injecting views of doom from newsroom into the public eye. But now the floor has risen on the cause of autism. Doctors show research and scores applaud with them. It's mercury and vaccines, often there's more given. Peace ignored and forbidden cause profit is war driven. A score billion on vaccines alone, and the government don't care. They're always taxing the clones, and the CDC is right behind this rolling cart, part involved from the start in this evolving art. A big pharma, big deception, Obama, big karma. Enter White, Roach, Bayer and Baxter Healthcare, all assorted history with stacks of health scares. You got HIV and bird flu mixed up in the shots. I've been connecting the dots between the money that swaps. Conspiracy, yeah, I sense a couple of plots.
If you never want to get the swine flu, don't go get the swine flu vaccine.
There is one little word that could say.
All right, I may or may not have used that as an excuse to go take a piss, but how are we liking the song? I know that was a really quick piss. Let me check chat real quick. That was prophetic, honestly. All right, I'll keep letting it play.
No.
You guys heard Augenus, right? Augenus's voice is
Say
in
no to the vaccine. And if the doctor says then make him take it himself, just say no. Say no to the vaccine. There is one little word that could save your health. Just say no. Say no to the vaccine. And if Obama says then make him take it himself, just say no. Say no to the vaccine. I don't need your prescription. I ain't got no effect.
Let me show you the other part Augenus is in, because honestly, I think the best part of this song is the first 60 seconds is particularly good. The rest of it, honestly, I don't think is that good. But what part was it? I wrote it down somewhere. Let me check. 3:15. Let me show you.
Don't get any injection. You never know what's in them. They're all poison. And there's no record that they ever prevent anything.
Yeah, it is. So, well, there you go. I like this song, and you know, even though it's a little corny, it's still. I can't say I agree with this song. These guys are crazy conspiracy theorists. Dear YouTube, if you're watching this, please delete this video, because I definitely do not agree with anything they said in there at all. Not even a little bit. Wink. All right, let me go back to the other camera. I'm going to end this now in a minute. It's been a little while. Well, everyone pack it up. It's time to end. Yeah, I'll hit you up. I got a lot of stuff to do today, though. You just got here. Well, welcome. It's been a very long stream. Honestly, the most entertaining part of the stream was after the conversation with Eddie ended. Yeah, I won't forget. But anyways, listen, I'm going to end this now. I'm hungry as hell. I'm going to go slam some chicken. So, I will talk to you some other time. New subscriber, say thanks to Eddie. Sure. Thank you, Eddie. But yeah, I'm out, y'all. I'm ending this. Good night or good morning, depending where you are. If you live in China, I think it's the morning, or Japan, something like that. But yeah, I'm out. See y'all.